Ready, gentlemen?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. We'll call to order this regular meeting of the Willows City Council. The time is 5:31 PM. Item 2 on our agenda, pledge of allegiance this evening. Mr. Sprague, would you do the honors, please?
Pleased to. Stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Item 3, roll call. City Clerk Amos Hoover, please.
Councilmember Thomas,
Here.
Councilmember Sprague,
Here.
Councilmember Wadden,
Here.
Vice Mayor Hudson,
Present.
Mayor Hanson.
Here.
Everyone's present, sir.
Thank you, Amos. Item 4, changes to the agenda. City Manager Marty Brown, good evening.
Good evening. There are no changes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you. Item 5, closed session pursuant to Government Code Sections 549 and 54.3. The public will have an opportunity to directly address the legislative body on the item below prior to the council convening into closed session. Public comments are generally restricted to 3 minutes. Item 5A, conference with legal counsel, substantial risk of litigation, potential exposure to litigation pursuant to Section 54956.9B. Is there any public comment this evening? I think there's no audience members here other than staff and council at this time. So the time is 5:33 PM and we will go into closed session at this time. Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the slight delay. We were discussing closed session item number 5 in the agenda. Time is 6:16 PM. We're reconvening into open session for a regular meeting for Tuesday, February 13th, 2024. Thank you for being here tonight. Moving on to item 6, presentation. Item 6A, let me back up, excuse me. Report out from item 5A, our closed session item. No reportable action information received from staff. Moving on to item 6 in regular session. Item 6A, annual fire department report. We're going to receive a presentation on the Willows Fire Department annual activity report from Fire Chief Nate Monk. Chief,
Good evening.
good evening.
Good evening, council members. Tonight is going to be the annual report for the Willows Fire Department. We're going to cover the 3 organizations that make up the Willows Fire Department. We're going to cover some of the things that we said we were going to do and got done this year in 2023, some of the projects and issues we're going to see moving into 2024, and talk a little bit about the 3 entities that make up the global organization known as Willows Fire. Next. The Willows community members. As the fire chief, it's my pleasure to present the 2023 annual report on behalf of the Willows Fire Department. This past year, the Willows Fire Department made considerable improvements in staffing, retention, volunteer participation, increased training, and upgraded equipment. In 2023, the Willows Fire Department authored and was awarded 7 successful grant packages totaling more than $4.3 million in funding. Critically needed capital equipment replacements and bringing unprecedented firefighter safety and emergency response capabilities. In addition, the Willows Volunteer Fire Department added 6 new volunteer firefighters to their ranks and reestablished a bi-monthly blood drive. Willows firefighters also spent more than 2,000 hours training and preparing to serve the citizens and visitors of the city of Willows in the rural district. Improvements planned for 2024 include ongoing training, expanding services, mitigating risk, improving internal processes, and continued recruitment and retaining qualified volunteers and career staff. While there's still many improvements needed, the Willows Fire Department, the Volunteer Department, and Rural District will continue to provide effective, responsible, and professional fire protection and emergency medical services with the resources available. So here's a little video of some of the stuff that we did this year. Tim Danley, one of our volunteers, is the one who made this. I'm not that tech savvy, so this is him. There's Vice Mayor Hudson. This is at a joint training that we had with Willows, Orland, Bayless, Glencadora, Artois, where we burnt that house down off of West Walnut Street for Indian Valley Health. This was last year's repair of the Hambright Creek levee while we were under Prepo through OES.
Well done.
Good job, Chief.
So this is the organizational structure for the City of Willows Fire Department, the first entity that's makes up Willows Fire. It's the citizens over the city council over the city manager, Marty Brown over me. And then I have, for the first time consistently, have had all three shifts covered, which has been really nice, giving the paid staff a little bit of a normal schedule again. So A shift is Captain Kyle Enos. Tyler Lombard is our B shift. He's a fire captain. And then our newest hire is Jaime Fuentes. He's a fire engineer, and we stole him from Cal Fire. He's all three are local Willows residents. Next. The Willows Rural Fire Protection District is a special district. There, I kind of describe the city and the rural as a undivorceable marriage. Where you have the citizens over the rural board, and then the rural board has a volunteer chief, which is Alex Parizio. And they have an agreement, the city and the rural have an agreement for mutual aid, automatic aid, and some staffing stuff. Next. The third slide is the volunteers. The volunteers are a 100% separate entity from both the city and rural fire departments. They're a nonprofit. There's around 35 volunteer firefighters. They provide staffing for the emergency response to both the city and the rural fire departments. They're funded completely by donations, and without them, the Willows Fire Department wouldn't be able to do the work that we do. Our paid staff does a great job. I kind of described the paid staff's job of not only emergency response, but giving the volunteers a turnkey fire department. That way, when the volunteers show up, they know that the saw that they're using to cut a hole in a roof is going to start, that the SCBA that they put on their back has air in it, that it's going to work the way it's supposed to. It really takes a lot of the burden off of the volunteers and the mandated reporting and the mandated equipment maintenance that needs to be done. And it's a very good system for us. Next. Some of our accomplishments, in this year, the Willis Fire Department responded to 1,028 calls for service. They trained over the paid staff and volunteers trained over 2,000 hours. We recruited and trained 6 new volunteers. We were awarded 7 successful grants, and we were able to replace some more unsafe and outdated safety equipment, including some self-contained breathing apparatus, radios, and hoses. Next. We've began our transition from a reactive department to a proactive department, really focusing on community outreach and getting our firefighters back in front of the community again, which is something that unfortunately we had to kind of dial back on during COVID with everything being shut down. And so kind of getting our department back out in the community and being seen as a community resource. We really are here for the community. There's kind of a joke that there is no 912, and whenever somebody doesn't know who to call, it ends up being the fire department. And I jokingly describe the job of a firefighter as a problem solver. And we've got a really good group of guys that find problems and fix them. So we're lucky that way. Next. This is a breakdown of the emergency response. Overall, the most common call that we do respond to is medical aids, but we do see our fair share of fire in this department. Approximately 76% of the responses were within the city limits, and just under 24% were in the rural district. And that's pretty consistent with historical average. Usually about 75% of the calls are within the city and 25% of the calls are within the rural district. Next. The next slides are going to go over our apparatus that we currently have. Next. Engine 3 is our newest piece of equipment that we have as far as fire engines go. It was purchased with a USDA grant in 2020. Estimated, we shouldn't have to replace it till 2050. Estimated cost is around 1.4, 1.5 million. But that's honestly a shot in the dark with how far down that piece of apparatus's replacement date is. Next. Engine 2 is tired. She's had a long life. She should have been ordered to be replaced a couple of years ago. But as everybody knows, it's not like we're bleeding money around here. It was placed into service in 1994. It's in poor condition. Estimated cost to replace today is about 1.1 million. It should be ordered as soon as possible. Current duration from the fire truck manufacturers is 36 months. So if we were to order it today, we wouldn't see it for 3 years. It's gotten to the point where when we pump test it, we have to lift the cab and then take one of our ventilation fans and blow it on the motor so the engine doesn't overheat while we're pump testing it to get it to its capacity. Something else to consider with the new federal guidelines that were adopted by our ingenious higher governments. Fire truck manufacturers aren't even giving quotes on what a 2027 year fire engine is going to be and beyond, because they don't know how they're going to make the motor yet that's going to conform to the emission laws that they passed. So it's extremely prudent that the council considers and recognizes the need to probably order this apparatus and in the near future before 2027, because I'm not sure, one, what the cost is going to be and if we'll even be able to order it. Next slide, please. Truck 4 is our ladder truck. There's one of 2 ladder trucks in the county. One is in Orland and the other is in the south part of the county here in Willows. It was placed into service in 2004. It's got a 25-year life expectancy, which means that it should be replaced in 2029. The same build time frame is on the truck as with engines, so there's about a 3-year wait list for completion from the time that we order it to the time that it arrives, which puts us in the same ballpark for needing to get truck 4 ordered before that 2027 deadline. It's an overall good condition, but there is some limitations with it. It's only a 77-foot stick, which gives us quite a few issues with some of our taller hotels like Holiday Inn. We're not able to get to the roof without being in the collapse zone. And there's there's a diminished capacity for elevated rescue in the 3rd story and even 2nd story with how many windows we're able to hit at one spot before we have to bring everything back in and move the truck again. So really, when we order the new truck, that ladder, I wouldn't order anything under 110 feet. Next slide, please. Utility 7, we placed this into service in 2023. It's got a 20-year lifespan. It's in new condition. And this was obtained 100% with grant funding through the CAL FIRE weed abatement grant that we were awarded at the end of 2022. Next slide. Utility 7. So this is the old Utility 7. This truck was placed into service in 2022. It was placed in reserve in 2018. It was in fair to poor condition. It was removed from service and surplus to Artois Fire District in 2023. They purchased it from the city as is for $5,000.
Excuse me, how much?
5,000. Next slide. Utility 8 is the reserve utility. It was placed in service in 2018. It was in good condition. We had a bit of a mishap with it during the last flooding event. I got some water in the motor, so it's having some work done to it now. It should be back in service here in about 5 months or 5 weeks or so. We're waiting on parts. Next slide. Engine 5. There is no picture of it because it's at Flynn's getting some brackets made. Engine 5 was placed in service in 2024. It's got a 15-year life expectancy. It's in good condition. It's actually the second newest piece of apparatus that the city owns as far as engines goes. It's a 2008. It's a 2007. It was procured through the federal excess program. So basically the federal government runs their wildland firefighting engines for 15 years. And then after that, they replace them. And the federal government is nice enough to let us have them as long as we change their paint color and maintain them. I waited till we were able to get an engine off of the Los Angeles National Forest. Wasn't the closest engine that we could get, but most of the Los Angeles National Forest is paved. So these engines have a lot softer life than, say, one that's up on the Klamath. So that's why we went with one from the Los Angeles National Forest. Next slide. So now we're getting into the rural fire district apparatus. Engine 14 is a Type 3. It was placed in service in 2004. It's in good condition. It was placed in service in 2004, and this is one of the engines that the rural is going to have to be looking at replacing here in the year 2034. Next slide. Engine 16. This is another Type 3 engine, should be replaced by 2030. It's in fair condition. It's starting to get to the age where the cost of maintenance is getting up there. It's not as resilient after some of these bigger fires than it goes on as it used to be. But overall, it's still a pretty good engine for us. Next slide. Engine 12 is actually going to be replaced this year in 2024. It's a what all my mechanic friends affectionately call a 6.0, which is a 6-liter Ford. It's had plenty of issues over its life. We received it used, I believe in 2011 from a district down south. I can't imagine why they got rid of it. It's in poor condition. We've had a litany of issues with it. We're just hoping it holds on till May of this year when the new engine 12 arrives. Engine 12, the new engine 12 was purchased with a USDA grant. Next slide. Water tender 15. This is the rural district's newest piece of equipment. It was purchased in 2016. Not much to say about that. Next slide. This is the air cascade trailer. This was placed in service in 2007. It's got a life expectancy of 40 years, so hopefully I won't have to replace it in my career. Next slide. Some more of our notable 2023 achievements. We've replaced all of our mobile and portable radios, which is grant funded. We've replaced a lot of our unreliable old Swiss phone pagers and upgraded to Motorola's. We now have our training program fully implemented with all of our task books for our paid staff and volunteers. We obtained a used Type 3 fire engine for the city at no cost, with the exception of a paint job and some minor equipment. We held many joint trainings with mutual aid partners. We completed our 2023 weed abatement. We had 6 community blood drives, and we sponsored Fire Prevention Week for all the primary and elementary school children, which is a huge task. Tyler Lombard is the captain in charge of our public education, and I did public education when I was one of the career guys, and while it was awesome getting to get out and see everybody, it's a ton of work, and so I'm super appreciative of him doing that. Yeah, next slide. So 2023 department funding sources. So these are some of the extra things that we were able to get as a department in the calendar year 2023, not fiscal year 23-24. So we've profited about $2,700 just on state funded OES. That's after payroll, repair expense, per diem, all of that stuff. The weed abatement grant, we billed out $164,604.05 for weed abatement activities. Weed abatement fines, we recovered $4,401.25. Fire Recovery USA, which is a program that City Manager Brown and myself started, I believe in May or March of 2022, which allows us to bill insurance companies for some of the larger incidents that we go on, vehicle accidents, structure fires, things like that. The policy that the council approved was, at the time, was that everybody gets a bill, and if you're a resident and the insurance company doesn't pay, and it wasn't in the commission of a crime or gross negligence, then the invoice is forgiven. And if you're a non-resident, then you're stuck with the invoice. So it allows the city to recuperate some of the costs. We see a lot of out-of-towners, people from all over the country that we respond to on the freeway. And those are people that don't pay taxes here that are using our services. So it allows us to recuperate some of those costs. The Willows Rural Fire Protection District paid the city $54,406.29. That's part of their contractual obligations based on the percentage of their property tax, their portion of dispatch fees, software fees, things like that. Code enforcement, we recovered $28,822.13 from separate code enforcement actions. A lot of those were on some of our big properties, big problem properties. Training, this is something that I'm going to try to increase in the next year. We've been hosting the county's emergency medical responder course for all the departments, and so we've been able to not only pay for our people's classes and get that paid for, but this is $4,300 in profit in a sense. I mean, it doesn't account for the staff time that it takes us to put the class on and instruct and stuff like that. But that number is what the city was net positive for when you take out the cost of tuition with the vendor and consumables. The Clean DOT grant, that was a $4,034,000 grant that was written For Sycamore Park, other grants, that includes CAL FIRE VFA grant, or they changed it to the RFC grant. They keep changing acronyms. Some USDA grants and a few others, and then the sale of the Utility 7, which brings the department to the 4.6 and change million dollars below. Next slide. In 2024, we've got some pretty big projects. We've started our transition to centralized dispatch at the sheriff's office. That began February 5th, and overall it's going really well. Willows came on as the first test pilot agency, the 5th. The anticipated start date for Orland and Artois to come over is going to be March 4th. And then we'll probably do that with just the 3 of us for another month and make sure all the software and the dispatchers are able to handle that call volume. And then we'll add the rest of the other 7 districts. No, 8 districts on after that. A lot of those grants are still open and require quarterly reporting. So that's what a lot of my time is spent doing, is tracking expenses and making sure that we're fulfilling the administrative burden on those grants. Grants are awesome and they're needed, and we wouldn't be able to get the work done the last few years without grant funding. However, no money is free money, and those grants come with a ton of reporting requirements, and that's probably half of my day is grants. We're going to continue to explore long-term sustainable solutions for future fire department funding needs, figuring out some way to long-term fund our capital improvement fund, which we don't really have right now. I'm continuing to look for a source of funds for additional advanced life support services. There is an increase of advanced life support services coming to the county. I'll talk about that at the end. But we do have the benefit of having a couple of paramedics that are on the fire department, myself and Captain Lombard. And it would be a huge increase of service if we were able to provide that added medical assistance. And then in 2024, we're going to be working with the rural district and figuring out what their long-term financial outlook is going. There's a lot of talk right now in the county from all the fire districts who are struggling and hurting and trying their best to provide service with some pretty dismal budgets. The rural district is one of the biggest districts in the county, and their budget's less than $100,000 when you only look at secured property tax and their special assessment. And that's not enough. When you look at Orland rural district's in the same boat. And those 2 departments, between Willows Rural and Orland Rural, being kind of the 2, I guess, big dogs in the county as far as size and revenue. All the other districts are feeling exactly the same. And so there's kind of a countywide discussion as far as the rural fire protection and what that's going to look like moving forward. Next slide, please. So last, it's kind of hard to see on the slide, is the ambulance response times. This comes from SSV. So if you look at the percentage on times, it kind of varied. We had a couple of good months where Willows was getting, 90, 94%, but a lot more bad months than good months where we're, down in the 70s. I anticipate that getting better, hopefully by the end of 2024. The city of Orland and the city of Willows, or not city of Willows, my apologies. The city of Orland and the county of Glenn entered into an agreement to subsidize the addition of a 12-hour ambulance in the Orland area. Looking at where the call volume was, it made more sense for the ambulance to go in Orland, because when you look at mutual aid right now, for every one time the Orland ambulance comes to Willows, the Willows ambulance is going to Orland almost 3 times. So that kind of lets us know that the call volume is down in Orland. So hopefully by adding that 12-hour car or that 12-hour ambulance to the Orland area, we'll be able to keep our ambulance local. We were also able to get for the first time ever, there's going to be a posting plan in the county, which means that when in times of extra resources in Orland and no resources in Willows, if there's 2 ambulances available in Orland and no ambulances available in Willows, that second ambulance in Orland is going to start driving down to Willows. That way, if there's a second call in Willows, our citizens won't be waiting as long for an ambulance. Right now, the county and Orland is picking up the entire cost of that tab. But I have a suspicion that in the future years that they're going to be coming for what they say is a fair piece of the pie for the added service. So luckily we got through that hurdle this time. I don't know how that's going to work in the future. So that should be something that the council considers as another possible future expense. And next slide. Comments or questions?
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much for that very informative and excellent presentation. Council members, questions for the chief?
Mr. Mayor. You have a couple here, if I might.
Yeah, Mr. Sprague.
You're on one of your pages here, you talked about additional funding and grants and that you didn't verbally point it out, but $4.34 million of grant funding. Who applied for those grants?
I did the bulk of the work for that grant.
You may have missed your skill set doing that. You also then identify some pretty heavy expenses coming up maybe as early as 2026, which is not too far away, and going into 2020 or 2030. Are some of those expenditures that you're looking at for the vehicles and whatnot, are those available to be or possibly funded by some of the grants that you've gotten in the past?
So there is, so yes and no. There is grants available for some of that stuff. For example, through the AFG grant, which is the Assistant to Firefighters grant. That's the grant that we wrote to get the $900,000 for SCBAs for the county. The problem with those grants is that they're super, super, super highly competitive. And so when you start asking for $1 million for apparatus, you're competing against departments that don't even have an apparatus. And so it's very difficult to get those grants. It's not to say that we're not giving it the college try, but we have to prepare for the very real possibility that there will not be grant funding available, especially with the way the budgets are looking moving forward at the state and federal level.
Well, before I go to my next question, I might suggest then that you condense some of these that you've got a fairly long laundry list spread out through this whole thing. Can you condense that to a single list that we can take a look at and then give some projections and do some thoughts on where that funding might come from if you're
Okay.
not able to?
Okay.
That would be helpful. Thank you. The other thing here that you brought up is on code enforcement. $28,000. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Is that backfilling the cost associated with what you?
Yeah,
had to
so
do?
for some of the larger code enforcement cases, when say a complaint comes in and it's a large, we'll say apartment complex that has multiple violations, and it's going to take a significant amount of staff time to fix those issues. We basically give them the initial inspection for free. We give them one reinspection for free. And then if they continue to have failed inspections, then we bill them for the cost of those, inspections, because there's added staff time, there's added administrative burden, there's use of contractors in some instances. And so, we were able to do that under Willows Municipal Code through the fire code section. And I feel that it's important that the city of Willows citizen isn't subsidizing someone's commercial venture for their malfeasance.
Okay, so this is, let me understand, this is a little bit more for health and safety issues on structures as opposed to hauling off the junk. car in
So
the driveway.
that's separate from weed abatement. So
That's
weed
separate.
abatement would be like generally like weeds and things like that during the weed abatement season. The code enforcement stuff ranges from, and code enforcement is such a broad term because you got fire code, building code, health and safety code, and oftentimes all of those codes intermingle. And so you end up showing up for this for this problem, and then you have to correct another problem to fix that problem, and it's in a separate code section. And that's where Wyatt has been super helpful with me, because I know the fire code pretty good, but as far as the building code and some of the other codes, that he's got a wealth of knowledge and a leg up on me in that standpoint. And so,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, if I may. Oh,
Mr. Vaughn.
well, yeah, first of all, excellent report, very detailed and easy to read and follow. Thank you so much. I'm interested in a relative comparison of $4.34 million in grant money. Do you have knowledge of historical success in that area, years past, comparable cities? Are we incredibly in debt to you for your ability to get that, or is this the norm? Or what is the level of achievement here in this grant money that you've gathered up for us?
Well, you kind of put me on the spot there. I think, I mean, if you put it in comparison of what our overall budget is around $780,000 is what the fire department's budget is. So I think that, yeah, I think without sounding conceited, I think it is a pretty significant accomplishment. It didn't happen by myself. I've had a ton of support from other city leaders, such as my boss, Marty Brown, Pat Pyatt when he was here. They definitely helped me out. City engineer, Mr. Wanger. I definitely have came into Marty's office with some pretty harebrained ideas, and she's given me enough leash to go after it, which has been cool. And so I think that for the size of our department, the size of our city, I do think it is a pretty good accomplishment, but it definitely wasn't by myself.
Since we love to compare, how does it compare to Orland?
Well, they got a bulldozer, so that's pretty cool for them. I think I'm beating Justin right now on that front, but he's got me with some other stuff. He's got a pretty cool training facility. Maybe you guys could build me one of those.
It's up to them. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Vaughn. Mr. Thomas?
Well, again, excellent report. I'm not into the fire world such as you are, so it's very informative for me. I have a couple questions on your 2023 emergency response review. You have service call 114 and good intent call 97. What are those?
So service calls, most of the time, those are lift assist. Lift assist, smoke detectors going off that the little old lady can't get up on the step stool to change the batteries. They have a smell of smoke in their house type of thing. That's kind of going back to there is no 912. So when a dispatcher takes a call for service and goes, well, nobody's got a gun, nobody's getting beat up. I guess we'll send the fire department. The fire department will figure it out. So that's what a lot of those service calls are. The good intent calls, generally those are like where we're called for a medical aid and we get there and the ambulance is already there and they're giving us the thumbs up that they don't need our help or something like that. Or we're dispatched to power lines down and we get there and it's communication lines and not actively arcing power lines, things like that.
Well, I'm glad you're here. They're changing the batteries on smoke detectors for those keeping our elderly safe. The other one is we have new radios.
Mhm.
And do they now communicate effectively with regional and local other fire districts or emergency units? So there's
Yeah,
not
so
any,
our
communication
radios
problems.
work much better than they used to. They're much more reliable. They have more transmitting power. They have they're just a more robust built radio that can withstand the inherently difficult job of firefighting. And I would say that while our overall countywide infrastructure for radios is nowhere near where it needs to be, our radios are now meeting and exceeding the capabilities of our current radio infrastructure at the county. The county is definitely in need of a global system upgrade, but in order to go P25 and fix a lot of those issues with our county-wide, not just Willow's problem, you're talking $5 to $10 million. And so that's not really in the pipeline for any of us at this point.
Thank you.
Captain Hudson, since you're a fire captain.
So the centralized dispatch, obviously listening to it, it's a lot clearer from what we used to receive. Has that also saved the city money or is that costing us more?
So centralized dispatch ultimately will save the city money with the current contract that we have. So that's going to be a net positive for the city.
Perfect. And then on the ambulance response times for Willows, that includes the Willows rural area as well, correct? Or is that just? the
So
city
that's
of Willows?
just within the city of Willows, and I'm almost positive that it also they also, for the purpose of the 10-minute response time, I'm almost positive they count Northeast Willows in that as well.
And I do have to say, yes, the radios are a lot more user friendly. The old ones, I would talk on the wrong channel and be communing with everyone all the way up to Red Bluff. The new ones, it's a lot easier to make sure you're in the right area. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Evan. Now, Chief, you know, I've said it before, but, we're so very fortunate in this community to have Willows Fire Department. I'll say it again, it's a jewel of an organization. You and your entire team do excellent work day in and day out. I'm very proud of you and of the career staff and the volunteers. I've told you this privately, Nate, you had big shoes to fill when you stepped in as fire chief. Relatively young man, you're a young man, relatively fairly new in the career, a few years working. You had some outside experience in some larger agencies, but you have filled those shoes, and I'm proud of you. You've done a great job. Proud of your team and proud of the career staff. Like I said, the volunteer team, Willows Fire with the different components, the rural, city, and volunteer, all three separate entities working as one giant organization, you know, per se, Willows Fire Department. I can't thank you enough and the entire team for everything that the men and women of Willows Fire do down there day in and day out. And, you know, it's a busy operation, 1,000+ calls routinely every year. But then again, you know, after you answer the calls, there's the follow-up, right?
Lots of cleanup.
There is, depending on, you know, the nature and type of the call, plus the ongoing maintenance that never ends, as we all know. So excellent work. Just like I say, I'm very thankful for what you do down there. And we're very, very fortunate here to have such a great organization. So thank you for the presentation, Chief. It was very good. And Mr. Danley did a great job on the video. It was very good, very good.
One thing that you jogged my memory to bring up is me as the fire chief, I'm very, very, very fortunate to have the volunteers that I do. You know, I joke and say, you know, I'm a fireman, I'm a paramedic. Those are the things that I'm good at. I'm not a appliance repairman. I'm not a HVAC technician. I'm not a mechanic. There's a lot of things that I'm not good at. But what I'm very fortunate about is having mechanics that are volunteers, truck drivers that are volunteers, HVAC technicians, insurance guys that are volunteers. Every single one of those volunteers brings another little avenue to us of an expert in something that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So there's a ton of things that happen at that fire station that if we were at a big city fire department, 100% would have been taken care of by a contractor and there would have been a bill. You know, if I feel bad for Skip Sykes because he gets a phone call probably twice, if not more, a week from somebody. Hey, do you know where the key is for this? Or how do you fix that? And he comes right down with his service truck and he's up in the attic fixing the air conditioner. Or, you know, one of the other volunteers, Robbie Burt, came down the other day and I walked out in the back bay and he had an engine completely tore apart and he ripped his thumbnail off and he's smiling and telling me that I owe him lunch because he broke his thumb fixing a valve on one of the fire engines. And so without those guys, not only myself, but this city and the rural district would be without a paddle in a lot of ways. And so I can't stress enough how fortunate I am to have the group of volunteers that I do.
Yeah, well said, Chief. And that's, you know, and just to follow up on that, that's where I'm going with, you know, congratulating you on the job well done in this day and age. As we know, it is so difficult just to hire a career staff, extremely difficult, let alone volunteers. But you've been successful in recharging the volunteer ranks. So kudos. That's good work. It's not easy to do. Job well done. And you've been successful doing that. So thank you very much. Keep up the good work. Thank you for the presentation. Gentlemen, anything further before we move on?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Be
You
safe out
guys.
there. Moving in on to item 7, public comment and consent calendar forum. All matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and are approved by one motion and one vote unless council members or the city manager first requests that a matter be removed for separate discussion and action. Individuals wishing to address the city council concerning consent calendar items or regarding matters that are not already on the agenda are invited to make oral comments of up to 3 minutes at this time. Please address your comments to the mayor and council members and not to staff and or the audience. And by state law, the council is not permitted to undertake any action or discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. First off, is there any public comment on the consent calendar? About any public comment in reference to any matters not on the agenda tonight? Anything? No? Okay, very good. Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar, item 7A, including the consent calendar, the register approval. Consider approval of the general checking, payroll, and direct deposit check registers. Item 7B, minutes approval. Consider approval of the January 17th and January 23rd, 2024 meeting minutes. Item 7C, facilities use agreement with Willows Unified School District for the 2024 City of Willows Summer Swim Season.
Mr. Mayor, is this the time to ask that that be taken off the consent calendar for individual
We
consideration?
can pull that item.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. 7C will be pulled. Separate discussion. 7D,
Mr. Mayor, I
Yep.
likewise ask that 7D be pulled for separate discussion and action.
7D, David, Mr. Sprague. 7D,
7D
Okay.
is in Delta.
very good. Okay. That will be pulled. 7E, letter of opposition, withdraw telecommunications carrier designation and carrier of last resort obligation. Consider authorizing the city manager to execute the attached letter opposing AT&T's application to the California Public Utilities Commission to withdraw their carrier of last resort obligation and eligible telecommunications carrier designation. Item 7F, contract award, Civic Center HVAC cleaning service. Consider authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with North Valley Cleaning to clean the HVAC ducts in the Civic Center in an amount not to exceed $15,000. 7G, Landscape and Lighting Special Assessment District. Consider adoption of a resolution appointing Coastland Civil Engineering as the engineer of work for the City of Willows Landscape and Lighting Special Assessment District and direct the preparation of the annual fiscal year 2024-2025 engineers report. So with the exception of
Mr.
item.
Mayor, I
Mr.
have just
Thomas.
one question about
Mr. Thomas, yes.
7G. And I know that the cost to do the engineered report is factored into the assessment, but do we know how much that cost last year? I should have asked the question so you'd be prepared, and I apologize for not doing so.
I don't know off the top of my head, sorry.
It does run to the citizens, so that's why I was gonna ask. But
It is
If you could
absorbed by
provide
the
that for
district
me
itself,
afterwards.
though.
Thank you.
Any further, Mr. Thomas? Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Vaughn.
I would like to move the consent calendar absent item C and I believe D from the consent calendar, all items for approval.
Mr. Vaughn's moved to approve the consent calendars, consent calendar items 7A, B, E, F, and G. Is there a second?
Second,
Who has a second? It was a tie. Who wants it?
you can have it.
I already pointed at you.
Vice Mayor Hudson, Vice Mayor Hudson has the second. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 7C, facilities use agreement with Willows Unified School District for the 2024 City of Willows Summer Swim Season. And this matter is consider authorizing the city manager or her designee to execute a facilities use agreement with the Willows Unified School District to use the school district swimming pool during the 2024 summer swim season for amount not to exceed $20,000. Mr. Bud.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I have had the opportunity over on a couple of occasions to interact with members of the Willows High School, the leadership there and others. And I've discussed with them the importance of us having a recreational program for our kids. You know how I feel about the pool. The pool will not be open until the summer of 25. I've asked them, and I hope it was appropriate, to consider alternatives to charging us for the use of the high school pool. It got down to the following reference, which I shared, which is simply this, that I would like to see that the high school and the Willows Unified School District not profit from us using the pool for purposes of recreation for our young people and anyone who swims in the pool from middle of June to the early part of August. They were receptive. I don't know what that means. I would simply like to have it state here that we not identify the maximum amount of 20,000. We take a number out and engage them on the basis of, we would like to have your support. And we'd like to state for the public, to the public, for your benefit and ours, that this Willows Unified School District and the Willows High School leadership is willing to support the pool program for the summer of 24 at a level which is as efficient, I don't like the word inexpensive or cheap, as low as possible for the benefit of all concerned. And I will tell you that part of the dialogue included the condition of the financial status of the city was a variable that was thrown out in the dialogue. And then I asked them all to approve the sales tax.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden.
And just for the council
Carolyn
education.
Walker. or
Didn't do this as a
City
council
attorney.
member.
City.
There was other stuff.
Ms. Walker. Yes.
Um, so this amount would be up to 20,000. It's not necessarily stating that.
I
that's what
understand
it
that. I
would
don't
be.
want to use the number.
Yes, but that is actually required. If we are going to get into an agreement with them for any amount of money, we need a,
Very good. And what did we pay last year? It was 14,000, right?
let me finish one
Oh,
second.
sorry.
We need an approval for up to an amount. Certainly staff can try to negotiate that down, but also, something to consider is that, we would have to pay for any costs. So any maintenance, upkeep, supplies, labor that our use of the pool would be, we wouldn't be able to obtain that for free necessarily. Because they
Understood.
can't provide that to us for free.
We use the term variable cost.
Yes.
That's okay.
But, so I think that is what staff's looking for, just approval up to that amount, and certainly they would try to negotiate as low as possible.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, I actually already had a conversation with the superintendent, and it was the superintendent who he and I talked back and forth and suggested that the not to exceed amount. So
Really?
that came from an actual conversation with the
That's-
superintendent, not one number that I made up.
Understand. And I was hoping that we would say not to exceed last year's number. That would be what I'd like to have it say instead of 20 grand. And honestly, I think it would be really good public relations for the Willows Unified School District and the high school to be publicly acknowledged for helping the city and the kids. That's the sell.
I could certainly talk to the superintendent about that. I think it was based on, well, I know it was based on him talking to his staff because I didn't hear from him immediately. He came back after a day and suggested that, and he said he wanted to speak with his staff before giving me a number.
Thank you.
Good question,
Thank
if
you.
I might.
Mr. Sprague.
Did the good folks over here hear what Mr. Bowden had to say?
Anything further, Mr. Sprague?
No, that was fine. It sounds like you've got a cold
I
and you
have,
were
apparently, I didn't know.
fairly soft spoken. I wanted to make sure these good folks heard.
The council members have
Move
any,
away.
any further comments in relation to Mr. Bowden's comments? Anything? Mr. Hudson?
I just have a question. Councilmember Vaughn, did you ascertain that if they actually did make a profit, or was the 14,000 covering the costs that it took to run the
It,
pool?
it was a dialogue about the positioning of the transaction, not the actual numbers.
Okay. I just didn't know if there was an actual amount that they,
We didn't pay 20 last.
And
That is correct.
this is up to 20, just a reminder.
Pardon me?
This is up to
I
authority.
know,
up
but we,
to a
but
20.
what did we pay last year since we've
It was
alluded?
around 13.
That's right. So it was way under 20.
no, I understand that. I just didn't know if there was an actual profit made or not last year by the school district.
It's
That's-
$400 a day, what we, at 20,000. To use the high school.
That was my only question. I didn't know if there was an actual
didn't
number there or not, or what their actual costs are to run the pool all summer. I'm assuming that they run it either way, so I didn't know if there's a way to ascertain that number
It's
when
their
we're
staff
negotiating.
time to take care of the
But,
pool and
yeah.
the chemicals and the cost of the chemicals. And so they don't really know until the end of the season what all that's gonna cost, because those things go up every year, just like
Mhm.
everything else, right? So
And pools aren't cheap,
they're not.
as we're learning as. a
You're on our
city, right?
team, Evan.
Huh?
You're on our team.
We're all on. the
I'm on,
same
no, we're all on the
council.
same team.
Anything further?
No, that's it.
Mr. Thomas, comments?
No.
No.
Mr. Mayor, I might suggest, since this got pulled, And nobody spoke up earlier when you offered, but since this item did get pulled, and I'm looking at some of the people in the audience, there may be somebody that would still like to comment on this matter. You were inclined to open that up again.
Yeah, I certainly could. We already had public comment, but we certainly can. Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Just a comment. I know in years past, with the Willows in reference to Willows Unified School District Agreement, the district did not make a profit and was not allowed to make a profit. So the actual costs at the end of the season were billed back to the city. And if my recollection is correct, Mr. Vaughn, last year's agreement with Willows Unified, I believe it's also had a $20,000 cap on it, if I remember correctly. Marty?
That is correct.
Yeah, so, I don't have I understand the comments, David. I don't see this as a problem. We have to have a cap on it for a dollar amount. Are you comfortable with that at this point?
I said my message.
Okay, very good, very good. Any, members of the public wish to comment on item 7C? Okay, thank you. Anything further, gentlemen, from council, in reference to this matter? Pleasure of the council in reference to item 7C.
Move to approve.
Second. Councilmember Thomas has moved to approve item 7C as presented. Councilmember Sprague has seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to item 7D, Council Protocol Manual Update. Consider approval of an update to the Council Protocol Manual as requested by the City Council at the January 9th, 2024 meeting. Mr. Sprague?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did not attend the meeting. I was sick that night on January 9th, so I didn't attend the meeting, so I apologize for not having a little better understanding of this issue. But my immediate reaction is that I take a little bit of issue with the modification to some recommended language here that individual council members may seek assistance from the city council or from the city attorney on other matters by directing requests through the city manager and or the mayor. I'm not anticipating, a poor choice of words, under the idea that maybe sometime in the future, one of the council members might observe some, let's say, unethical activity by either staff or city manager or another council member. I would hate to hamstring that city council member that wanted to have some direct advice with the city attorney without advising the city manager or the mayor of that potential action. So I'm concerned if the word assistance may seek assistance from the city manager or city attorney, maybe and I understand the objective here, I think, of the city's staff's recommendation here is not running up the city attorney's billing cost associated, but maybe that word assistance could be changed to advice, to be able to get advice on occasion, depending upon what the issue is, and leave it up to the city attorney to make the determination. This sounds like it's a personal issue, Mr. Councilman, as opposed to something that would be the entire council that would be concerned.
I think, I understand that your concern. I think that the bigger picture was that we were hoping that if there is that issue, it go to either the city manager and or the mayor first. And in hopes that not everybody is part of maybe the issue. I mean, certainly if everyone else, including the city manager and the mayor, is part of that certain council member's concern or issue, I think that it would be a conflict to go to them first. But I think that for a majority of these items, the hope and really what happens in other jurisdictions, frankly, is that the mayor and the city manager kind of are the gatekeepers of that. So that was the thought process there.
Especially when, your city attorney's a contractor. I would just say, because in larger cities where the city attorney is an employee of the city, that's not as much of an issue, but in a city where you have a contract attorney, it is an issue. But I also just wanted to, state that this was direction given by the council. And so the change is, the recommendation is really based on direction that was given to staff by the city council.
By the council. I
That
would
is correct.
assume that was before I was on the council. That I don't recall that being a topic of discussion in the past. Maybe I missed it. I might be having a Biden moment. I don't know. I'm sorry, no humor, some sense of humor.
Well,
I'll let your
of course,
colleagues answer.
the issue came about because we have a flat monthly rate with the contract under a city attorney that we entered in, hired. In that contract had a 6-month review period. So we could say whether we were under the usage that was anticipated or over. We have been over substantially. So we were looking for ways to control the costs of council's inquiries into the city attorney, trying to lower that bill.
Okay.
And that was
Where-
the whole purpose. It was fiscally driven.
Okay, so then my question then ends up did we over abuse your time? Some of the council members talking to you, getting assistance and or advice?
Certainly there, I think almost double, there's an allotment for 52 hours of my firm's time total a month in the flat rate fee. I think we were almost double, if not more, for a majority of those months. And then we looked at 8 months, actually. We were a little bit late on our 6-month review, considering all the things that were happening. So this was one of the ways to not increase the attorney's flat rate fee or rate to the city, because we all know the state of the city at this point. And in hopes lower the time spent for the attorney and, my staff, from my firm, so that we got closer to that 52-hour mark instead of having to increase our flat rate fee to the city.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. Was that additional time or that exorbitant time associated directly with you having to respond to individual council members?
Certainly, it was all time billed for the city, which includes the time spent speaking to each council member, staff, researching issues. Yes,
But staff and researching issues, how much time was actually spent responding to any one of us 5?
I did not break it down that much
see.
further. Certainly you're entitled in, with attorney-client privilege, of course, to all of the billing, that our firm provides, and you can look at that. But at this point, that was what we pulled all of the numbers, and it wasn't just my hours, it was other attorneys that are working on Willow's matters as well as other staff.
Okay, I guess it seems like we're changing or modifying something within the protocol manual that isn't necessarily justified that any one of us or collectively abused the privilege.
That was what the one of the council solutions, there's others to this issue. And they actually, your other council members came up with one of those solutions and directed staff to change the protocol for that.
Okay, right. Well, I'm only one of 5. The other issue that I've got here, what caught my attention was and maybe this was discussed, and again, if I was absent when it was discussed, I apologize. But what caught my eye was page 40 of the manual that had a chart, organizational chart before, and then now is this new organizational chart part of your amendment to the protocol manual? Because I pulled up my protocol manual, my hard copy, and the organizational chart is somewhat or substantially different than what's on here now.
I can't answer that, but is it just updated with the actual position or what do you?
Yeah, this is the org chart that was in the 22-23 budget and it hasn't changed any.
It was the chart that was in the budget.
It was the
chart that was proposed to the former council and approved as part of the fiscal year 22-23 budget.
I
And
see.
that hasn't really changed. If anything, the only thing that's changed actually, which is not up to date. Well, not only that, I was going to say is that we now have a full-time children's librarian that was not in 22-23. That's the one big change I remember. So that should
City
be
clerk
updated.
is not
Okay,
vacant.
you're answering my question. This is not part of this modification. Addendum.
No,
This-
it's already,
okay,
no,
so
it was already
It just doesn't match with my old copy.
With your version.
A
correct.
couple of things that did change that caught my attention, and I'm not going to argue over it, but since it's already been done. But we've changed the citizens of Willows at the top to make reference to the people as Willows residents at this point. I understand the distinction between a legalized resident that's gone through the process and so on, but citizens of Willows, is somewhat preferable to me. So on, but if this has already been done, not part of this, then,
Only what's in the staff report is the proposed change
okay.
for the.
Very
for
good.
Commonwealth.
Well, I just stand firm on my position of being concerned of changing this particular language, but again, I'm only one vote.
And Mr. Sprague, in reference to your question, I will read this for the audience's benefit. The the only change as we just answered in reference to the City of Willow City Council Protocol Manual was just one item, this one sentence.
Right.
The former language stated individual council members may seek advice or assistance from the city attorney on other matters while exercising their best judgment on the most efficient and appropriate use of his or her resources.
That's what it used to say.
That's what he used to say. The recommended new language we're discussing tonight. Individual council members may seek assistance from the city attorney on other matters by directing your requests through the city manager and or the mayor. That's the change. That's a recommended new language, that sentence. And as Mr. Thomas pointed out, this was strictly to control escalating city attorney costs, responding to questions from individual council members, period. And in lieu to part of your question, the reason the request will be directed through the city manager or whoever the mayor is for that year is because if there is a conflict involving the city manager, then that council member has the opportunity to submit the request through the mayor. So
That's fine.
Yeah.
Again, my question was, it seemed like we're trying to fix something that wasn't broken, so.
well, the issue, we're escalating city attorney bills, responding to council member requests.
And I won't belabor it, but my point is, unless you can demonstrate that it's been over abused by the council members, then I disagree that the change needs to be made. Thank you.
It's, yeah,
I believe that was what the entire closed session was about, which we're not privy to speak on at this time.
yes.
Am I
it was a close-
incorrect in saying that, since I was part of the closed session?
Yes,
So we cannot bring that to light now,
yes,
this
that's
point.
correct.
So
Closed session.
that
discussion.
it was those, what you're asking about was brought up during the closed session, which cannot be brought up during this meeting right now.
I see.
But you should have that information. You should have received the same information that we all received and went over that night. Is that correct?
Yes. And
That
we
has
can't-
those, that breakout and everything else that you're discussing? Or that he's asking about?
Yes.
And that will be coming back.
Anything further? Evan?
Nope.
Mr. Sprague, anything further?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Hopefully that helps kind of
Mr.
answer your
Button,
question
Mr.
on that.
Thomas,
I'm good.
pleasure of the council on reference item 7D.
Move to approve.
Second.
Councilmember Thomas has moved to approve item 7D as presented. Councilmember Vaughn has the second. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I'm going to be consistent. I am opposed. Thank you.
Vote is 4-1 for approval. Mr. Sprague voting nay. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 8. Public hearing. This matter is agendized as well, I'm sorry, let's go into public hearing. Let me got ahead of myself a little bit.
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Yes,
Interrupt here on this. I did have some communication back and forth with city attorney in regard to this matter. I first questioned the city attorney whether or not this was an actual action taken by the planning commission from my perspective and looking at the minutes and so on. I was concerned that it wasn't the formal action. She, the city attorney, reviewed the audio and did come to the conclusion that there was enough discussion that it was very clear that to the applicant, to the staff, to the rest of the commission, that in fact the project was being denied. So that being said, and my thought was, should this not be before it brought to us, should it bounce back to the planning commission for an actual formal action? I concur with the city attorney's conclusion that it was probably more than adequate to be able to suffice for the action that was taken. However, this is the picture of that same building that I have entered into escrow a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and proposed it for professional office buildings and that type of thing. I spent a great deal of time in doing investigations and inspections, et cetera. And I did my own design and floor plans and that type of thing, and invested quite a bit of time and money into the project, only to come to the realization on the other side of my efforts that I was probably going to have some difficulty working with the city. The point of all that is I've searched my conscience. I've also communicated with the city attorney in regard to this, and we have come to the collective conclusion that I would be better that I recuse myself from this item. I have to honestly say that I would be concerned that I could not have an objective opinion on this project. So I'm going to step away.
And just to be clear, I did not make that decision. You made that decision independent
Well,
of,
yes,
of
you
my
did.
advice.
You're right. You did not advise me. You suggested that it might be wise that I did. So yes, you didn't. And I like in these matters to let my conscience be my guide, and I'm going to step away. So I misspoke. I apologize.
Just wanted to clarify.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, excuse me.
Mr. Sprague will be recusing himself from item 8A.
And I'm just going to go to the lobby when you're ready for me. Wake me up.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Hudson.
I have to recuse myself as well as through my business. I have a financial interest in the yay or nay of this going through. So with that being said, I'm going to recuse myself as well and leave it to you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Hudson, thank you. Evan will be recusing himself from item 8A as well.
Can I recuse myself to the bathroom? Thank you.
Do you need to take a recess?
Yeah.
A brief recess. Okay, I know you've been waiting quite a while, ladies and gentlemen, but please excuse us for the 5-minute recess, then we'll open the public hearing. So please, thank you. 5 minutes. Council members, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Staff, ready?
Yes.
I think everybody's ready. Well, good evening, again, ladies and gentlemen. Time is now 7:33 PM. We're reconvening into regular open session. First, in reference to the public hearing tonight, there's one public hearing on the agenda, as you know. It's in reference to the appeal tonight. So just for some housekeeping information, I'm going to just make some citations here. Item 8, this is a public hearing. All matters in this section of the agenda, which is our one item, are formal public hearings, in this case, a public hearing, and will be acted on individually. Once the mayor opens a public hearing, members of the public may request to speak. When you are called on by the mayor, please state your name clearly for the audio recording. If you have any documentation that you would like to be distributed to the council, please give it to the city clerk for distribution. Does anybody have any documentation that have not already submitted tonight they'd like to submit? Or you can, please, please submit it to city clerk Amos Hoover. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Thank you. We're going to be considering item 8A tonight. This is an appeal of MUP 23-03, in file number AP-24-01. Item 8A will consist of holding a public hearing. Consider the appeal of Mr. Harish Banger to overturn the Planning Commission's determination of his major use permit, MUP, also known as an MUP, application, and approve the project and permit. At the heading item 8A, the appeal of MUP, that's what that stands for, major use permit. I'm sure you already figured that out. I just want to make sure that's clear for the record. Tonight, our staff presenting are obviously all here. We have City Manager Marty Brown, Joe Betancourt, our Community Development and Services Director.
Thank you.
And we also have Brian Turner, our Principal Planner, who will present. Just for the public's information, that for tonight's appeal, the public hearing process will consist of, I'll open the public hearing. We'll do that in just a couple of minutes. Step 2, I'll call the item again. Okay. Item 3, I'll allow public comment on any matter, anything, any content you have to say regarding this matter. Okay. Next up, number 4, opening statements from the parties, from appellant and our staff. I'll begin with staff, then the appellant will have opening statements. And it consists of opening remarks and what they're seeking from the council or their positions. Number 5, if any additional evidence presented to the city council from appellant and or staff is presented, it'll be received. And finally, number 6, closing statements, if any, from either party. At that time, I'll close the public hearing, and then we'll have a discussion by the city council. As you witnessed, we have 2 members who recused themselves, Mr. Sprague and Mr. Hudson. So now we have we still have a quorum of 3 members of the city council, which will be considering this item tonight. Any questions in reference to any comments I just made? Yes, sir. Please. It's not required, although it is appreciated if you do state your name for the record.
Good evening, Richard Harriman. I'm an attorney over in Chico. I'm curious why we're not allowed to hear the presentation by the appellant before the public gets to comment, and I would ask through the chair if the city attorney might opine. I thought we would be going after the appellant. Am I misunderstanding?
I will ask for public comment, and then I will ask for additional public comment after that.
After the appellant has spoken?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody will have time to be heard tonight.
I didn't understand that. Thank you.
Well, that's why I wanted to read it and just so everybody was, so we're all on the same page with the procedure tonight. This is a little different since it is an appeal. It's a little different, and each appeal is a little different, as we know. So this is the procedure we'll be following tonight. Okay. All right. Okay. Item 8A. I've already read item 8A. So for that, I want to read this for the record. We've now come to the public input portion of the hearing. This public hearing is being recorded and is subject to possible review by the courts. Therefore, all statements or remarks must be made clearly and distinctly into the microphone. When I call for public comment, if there is anyone in the audience who has any pertinent evidence or opinions or statements relevant to issues being heard, please step to the microphone. I've said this before, I'll repeat it. And although it is not required, it is also requested that you please state and spell your name for the record. And comments are generally limited to 3 minutes. A number of people here tonight, and please try not to be repetitive in your comments, but everyone will be heard. Everyone will be heard who wants to be heard. Okay? All right. First, at this time, which is 7:38 PM, we'll open the public hearing in reference to item 8A at this time, which will be considering the appeal of Mr. Harish Banger to overturn the planning commissioner's determination of his major use permit application and approve the project and permit. Marty Brown?
I'm actually gonna go ahead and turn this over to staff, I thought we were doing public comment first, but sorry.
Just if you had any comments.
I don't, if you're
I'll go
you're
right to
ready
public
for
comment.
a
for
staff
first,
presentation, you know, we can do that.
To the public, did we ask for public comment first?
I'm getting there. next.
Okay,
I just,
So that would be the first.
yeah, I always defer to the city manager for, with every item, just in case. Just
Thank
in
you.
case we
I
miss something.
appreciate that.
That's
No,
all, just in
I
case
think
we
we're-
miss something.
You got it. You're
Since
on
this is a
target.
public hearing. Very good. Okay. Is there any public comment at this time? And I will call for public comment after the presentations as well. Any public comment at this time? Give me Mr. Garner, please.
Randy Garner. I object to the major use permit application and request the council not to overrule the denial of such application by the city planning commission. I've already submitted here in a written objection, which is on page 133 of tonight's agenda, and I'm not in lieu of that, but in addition to that, want to make a few comments. This is just simply the wrong business for this location. Certain businesses operated at certain locations are inherently detrimental to public health and safety and welfare. This council is charged with a duty, plan and consider best businesses and their locations for the best possible revitalization of Willows. And that's just not simply a anywhere and what anyone wants concept. Applicant has many letters supporting his character and contributions to Willows, and I'm certainly not objecting to the applicant as a person or his efforts, just the location of a business at a place that makes no sense for Willows or this area of Willows and will only contribute negatively to the neighborhood. Unfortunately, we already have trash and tagging problems in Willows, and thus businesses on a poorly lit street will only exacerbate this discipline. This business and this location is playing to the lowest common denominator for revitalization, which if adopted, will very likely destroy the reasonable efforts for revitalization of that area. The applicant has already had 2 separate similar businesses in Willows at better locations than this for that type of business, but both have closed. They were located in areas more likely to pull in customers than this location. So I don't know why this new location could possibly be better. I'm just always very concerned that if it's simply to capture the high school student business, I cannot think of any other reason that location would be suitable. To approve this application would ignore our responsibility to our community and its youth. I'm very familiar with this location, and it is void of traffic and light when it turns dark at night. I have little optimism this business will change this, but if traffic is generated, it will be in the dark, creating safety and security concerns with diminished police coverage in these areas. This is simply the wrong place for this business, which would have and will have a huge detrimental effect on Willows' public health, safety, and welfare. Respectfully submit that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Garner. May I also, it'll be noted that the city council has received a full file, including the recording of the planning commission's permit hearing and all evidence is received at that hearing from the appellate staff. That includes letters of support and opposition and also the petition opposed to the project that was also submitted, just for information. Any further public comment before we move to opening remarks? Yes, ma'am. Please approach the podium. Yes, please. That way, you can be, your comments will be recorded.
Anita White. I just wanted to say that I was a manager for Circle K for about 16 years out of 23 years I worked there. We had the kids come in 50 to 60 at a time. And we never had any issues with them trying to buy tobacco or alcohol. They loved coming in there, getting their food, their snack, their drink, and then jotting back to school before the bell rang. And also, I wanted to say that I know Willow's Liquor used to be a block down from there years back. So, because I heard that was something about why it was declined. And also wanted to say that Henry was one of the best bosses I've ever had. And he's good to his people.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Ms. White. Thank you very much. Welcome. Any further public comments? Yes, ma'am. Evening.
Good evening. Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Carolina Cabral. I'm with the Glenn County Tobacco Education Program through Public Health. In 2018, the Surgeon General noted there was a surge in youth vaping, and today this issue still persists. The tobacco industry is often targeting youth by creating enticing flavors and uniquely designed vape products that look like candy, school supplies, and regular everyday items. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, tobacco product use is started and established during the teenage years. Furthermore, proximity and density of tobacco retailers within communities influences smoking behaviors through greater exposure to tobacco products and advertising. Higher density of tobacco retailers within a community discourages quit attempts by triggering real-time cravings, providing cues to smoke, and promoting impulse purchase of tobacco products. There are currently 11 tobacco retailers in our Willows community, and many of those retailers are mini marts. Now, how does tobacco density impact rural communities in particular? Well, when you compare the limited population with a disproportionate number of tobacco retailers, it magnifies the prevalence of tobacco-related influences. This disparity is heightened when retailers are situated in close proximity to schools, recreational areas such as parks, and other areas frequented by youth and children. It not only normalizes tobacco use, but also amplifies the challenges associated with tobacco prevention efforts. And I included that map that you guys have with the tobacco retailers. The red dot is the retailers, and then it shows the school zones and the park zones as well with the boundary. Thank
Okay.
you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cabral, for your comments. Any further public comments? I saw a gentleman stand up. Yes, yes, sir. Good evening.
Hello, Bruce Lopes, a local farmer here for the last 45 years. I've known Henry for the last 8 years. And as far as I could tell, he'd be a total benefit to the community. He's a very nice, kind, and outgoing person. And don't know anything about the rest of the business, but I do know Henry, and he's a very good person to be a benefit to our community.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Lopes. Any further comments? Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
I just want to say that I'm referring to the email between Ms. Downer, the art teacher, and also Henry. And I just want to say that when I spoke to the admin about this, they knew nothing about any student painting the side of the building. And they really, the impression that I got from the conversation was they weren't pleased that students would be painting on a building that would be selling these types of products. The other thing I want to say is I'm recently on the planning commission and I want growth. This has nothing to do with his character. I don't even know him. I think that there's a place for this store and I don't think downtown is this. I want to support Willows. I want to support the taxes. I want downtown Willows to be beautiful. This type of a business is not going to help us be beautiful. It's not going to bring in more tax dollars. It's going to share the same tax dollars that we have. I think we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Yeah, I say one more thing.
Yes.
Having worked at the school for 13+ years, I know that students used to go to Walmart for lunch. I also know for a fact that they used to steal from Walmart. I know that they used to limit the number of students into Walmart. I know that they weren't allowed to take their backpacks.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, council members. My name is April Hine, and I am the Tobacco Use Prevention Education County Coordinator. I worked at the Glenn County Office of Education. I'm going on my 22nd year. And for most of the time, I have worked to prevent tobacco use by our students and to delay the onset of use. I have also worked to provide intervention and cessation services to students that are caught on campus. We knew a lot about cigarettes. 10 to 15 years ago, we always kind of said that we were going to put ourselves out of business because we use tobacco tax dollars. So if nobody was buying cigarettes, then I wouldn't have a job. And then that game changed about 10 to 15 years ago with vaping devices and flavored products. And last year in January, a flavor ban took effect, and we were really hopeful that we would see a decrease in the number of students using and getting caught on campus. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The burden of tobacco use on campus is huge for our administrators. I spoke with the vice principal today, and he said that until they received a metal detection wand in December, the detection devices that were installed through a grant through the Department of Justice and the Glenn County Sheriff's Office were going off daily, saying that students were using vaping devices on campus. In a 4-month period, this bag of vaping devices was confiscated just this year after the flavor ban. The number one key to prevention is reducing access. And unfortunately, we know in Glenn County that young people have access to these products, even though they're not allowed to be sold. I had the opportunity to do a youth purchase survey just in Orland 2 months ago, and over 23% of the stores sold tobacco to people who were under the age of 21. So without IDing, sold flavored tobacco products. Just last week in Orland, a tobacco retailer was visited by our school resource officer and asked to take products just like this off the shelf that are not allowed to be sold. I have given you a packet of information. This packet is the last California Healthy Kids survey data. So this is a survey that our 7, 9, and 11th graders take every 2 years. And it really gives us a snapshot of what some of the behaviors that young people are exhibiting. We are just getting ready to take this survey again. But you can see through this that our cigarette tobacco use is down, but our vaping numbers are very high. And this is an epidemic that we have with young people. The second is our packet about 10 things that we should know, we think everybody should know about vaping and vaping devices. So I hope that you take the time to look through the data and to look through this presentation and just educate yourself on this vaping problem that we have with young people, not only in Willows, in our county and in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Sorry. Any further public comments? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Ernesto. I'm a citizen
I'm
of
sorry, what
Willows.
was your name, sir?
Ernesto. Ernesto.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm a student of Willows High School. I'm also a member of Students Working Against Tobacco and FNO, Friday Night Live. And I want to talk about this issue because I feel like having a store close to us is just kind of adding to more students getting tobacco products and vaping devices. I've seen around social media a lot of students using them. So it is a thing and students are using them. Also, just having a place like this in Willows, like closer to school, it's meant, okay, let me go back a little bit. We know that Willows is a small town and people can drive anywhere. So that means the juniors and seniors have the access to a car, most of them, and to drive like around town. But freshmen and sophomores that can drive have access to those stores that are closer to campus and to get those products, you know? So it's not only targeting high school students, but it's also targeting the younger part of the, high school students. So I'm asking for this store to not sell tobacco products because I just think it's not a good place. It's just like 2 blocks away. And it's just gonna make it more accessible for students to get the products. And it's just an issue that it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And having to start like this is just not gonna help at all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. Any further public comments? Anyone? No further comments? Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I could, you were partially blocked back there. Good evening.
My name is Harish Banger. I represent 360 Sycamore. Appreciate everybody's comments. July 2023, we applied for business license, and in our application,
So, not to interrupt, but would you like to cover this in your report when we're almost
yes,
there?
sir. Yes.
We're almost there rather than public comments.
Uh, yeah.
Would you prefer to do that? We can, I was going to, after public comments, I'm going to defer to staff and then you will have your presentation.
Okay, sure.
Would you like to
We
do
can
that?
do that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. It sounds like you're starting your presentation, so, okay, very good. Very good. Thank you, sir. Any other public comment before we move forward? Okay. Staff, City Manager Marty Brown?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. In the interest of time, I'm going to hand this directly over to the Community Development and Services Director, Joe Betancourt, who's going to give a presentation on behalf of staff. And with us also is Byron Turner, our contract planner, in the event that we need some additional planning, explanation and background. He's here as well to answer any questions. Joe.
Thank you, Marty, Mr. Betancourt. and Mr. Turner.
Good evening, council. So yeah, you guys know the facts of this case, for this application. It was a major use permit for 360 West Sycamore that came on January 24th. We had some robust discussion with the planning commission. The main concern with the planning commission, was about the public health and safety, which is item number 2 under the MUP. Their main concern, seemed to stem around tobacco use and relativity to the school. Staff just wants it noted that, we do have agencies, ABC, ATF, that monitor these activities. So public health and safety, yes, it's a responsibility of the store owner, but assumptions of what happens at other stores are, don't necessarily apply to every store. So we just ask you to consider that there's a lot of players in this game, a lot of agencies, including our local agencies that regulate these sale of tobacco and alcohol, and they're both a 21 age restricted item.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. Anything further? Anything further, Joe? Nope. No. Mr. Turner? Your opinion? Okay, very good. Thank you. Mr. Harish Banger. Now, it's your turn now. Yeah, thank you for being here tonight, Mr. Banger.
So
And
As
you
I
may-
was-
and you may present your case.
once again, my name is Harish Banger from 360 Sycamore West. Mayor, Vice Mayor, sir. July 2023, we applied for business license for this location after talking to the city. And in our application, we clearly mentioned what every mini-mart carries products, which includes alcohol, tobacco, snacks, drinks, and soda. And based on that, we were issued a business license on July 2023. And after that, we proceeded, talked to the city. We acquired plans just to make sure the building is safe and okay to operate business in there. We spent so much money getting those plans from different engineers, energy plans. I understand a couple concerns about the public. They're worried about tobacco products. We only gonna have maybe 10% of the space dedicated to tobacco. And we have checks and balances in place. Not anybody can come in there and buy products like tobacco or alcohol. Regardless of their age, they have to have ID. And we just don't check ID. They have to be scanned. I know lots of people will be mad, especially seniors. They will be upset, but we are ready to take that journey. If we don't scan the ID on our POS system, we cannot proceed. That means we cannot sell the product. So there's no question that any person less than 21 years old can buy any alcohol or product or tobacco from at least other stores. Other stores, I cannot guarantee. What POS do they have? We also acquired plans from Health Department, Glen Health Department, and they will ensure that we are selling all food and drinks and practicing food and safety. Last time when meeting was held, Planning Commission, the bigger concern was health and safety of public. We have those checks and balances in place. We're not going to have no signs of beer or alcohol, any sort, or tobacco products in the window. No. Couple signs we are going to have which are required by the law are these kinds, over 21, or premises are recorded, or audio and video, those kinds of signs. And not just that, we are also improving the building as far as ADAs are concerned. Our restaurants are ADAs, cashier counters going to be ADAs, and parking, there's going to be parking for ADAs. As far as outside lighting is concerned, there were a couple points earlier. Somebody mentioned that during dark or evening hours, it's so dark out there, we can have floodlights out there, not to disturb the neighbors, but just to make sure around the premises is absolutely lit at night, all night, it will be lit. And we can have video cameras, not just security of our premises, but also security of the neighborhood. And I can guarantee you, we are responsible retailers. Other youngsters these days, if they require getting these products, not necessarily they're going to shops or getting these products like vapes. They're also going to big retailers online. These days, parents have their credit cards online and kids go in there, purchase them. No ID is required. We all know that. It's no secret. The retailers, I don't think anybody can jeopardize their program. First, all these products are banned. Earlier, lady mentioned these bag of vapes. Those are banned in California. So some retailers are selling them. Good luck to them. I cannot afford to lose my license over that. That's our livelihood. I cannot. I won't take the chance. So thank you so much.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Banger. Thank you very much. Anything further from staff at this
No.
point? No. Okay. Paul, I'll call for a public comment from the audience again at this time. Who would like to begin? Good evening.
Good evening, Lori Pride. I find it interesting that Henry said he had a business license issued in July of 2023. The business license process in Willows used to be that they would come and if there was a zoning issue where that type of business wasn't allowed by right in that district, that would start the planning process. It sounds like he was successful in getting a business license, and yet in January of this year, he's before the Planning Commission for a major conditional use permit. That tells me something's broken. Someone bought a building, someone started improvements, someone started a business venture, and yet found that the use per the city zoning was not a permitted by right use. So in January is the first time really that the public had the ability to know through a public hearing process for the Planning Commission that this type of use was coming into that neighborhood. I don't think anybody's here to argue that the person doesn't have good character, that the person hasn't run successful businesses. I think the whole issue is the location of this particular business and the type of business that it is. So I think the decision before you is you have a planning commission and you have planning commissioners that you've appointed to uphold the zoning ordinances that the city has put in place and to be that gatekeeper, if you will, for the citizens of this community to determine what use is appropriate and what use is not in an area. So they heard that and they made the decision that it wasn't an appropriate fit. So of course, now you have that untenable position to determine what is the best step going forward. I think it's unfortunate that Henry or any business person coming into our community, for whatever reason, made a purchase, invested dollars, and got the cart before the horse a little bit. So I think a takeaway outside of this appeal even is how do we make sure that doesn't happen? That people have a better understanding of our zoning and, that we can have growth. We want growth and we want business, but we do want it in the right place. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comments.
Can I respond to that business license?
Mr. Benford,
Yeah,
please.
so the business license was issued in air. Our third-party company, HDL, issued the license. When we went back and looked at the file, it had specific notes in there from Karen Mantelli that this was not to move forward until all the planning applications and things were received. Somehow it was issued. I contacted him in, I believe, November and stated that we had an issue with his license. It is not valid until he completes the planning commission process and the rest of it. We did allow him to continue improvements while he was doing that, as he can improve the building, but under the understanding that there was no guarantees that his business would be approved by the planning commission, environmental health, or any of that. His license has since expired as of the 23, or was nullified as soon as we told him, and it will not be renewed. So he does not have an active business license as of right now, but it was an error on our third-party company, HDL. And I think the resolution of that is we're looking to bring that back in-house, so we don't have those errors in the future. But yes, that was a mistake. As far as the zoning goes, it is a central commercial district, but the mini mart is allowable use under a conditional use permit.
Okay, thank you for
Yep.
that information clarification, Mr. Benford. Thank you very much. Any further public comment? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of the council. My name is Richard Harriman. I'm an attorney in Chico at 1078 Via Verona Drive, Chico 95973. I'm an attorney who's practiced land use and environmental law for over 40 years. And I've also served as a consultant to the State Historic Preservation Office in the past. I'm appearing this evening in the public interest as a friend of Willows. And the reason for that is that I worked here with the court for 3.5 years. And then afterwards, I opened a law office in Jane Stansel's building, which is kitty corner to this building, 103 South Plumas. So I know the area very well. I'm very emotional about this because I think there are some issues that have not been raised that I'd like to raise for you. They're primarily procedural. And so if I might, through the chair, have a little latitude here. I did not see any resolution with findings that was provided to the council. Is that presently existing for tonight?
The resolution did not pass. This was.
No, I understand that. But have you prepared a resolution or findings for tonight yet?
No.
Okay, and will this matter then be sent back for resolution and findings before it comes back?
If a decision is made.
Well, a decision will be made and then there will be a resolution and finding, or maybe not.
I don't know that.
You're right. It wasn't made before. Correct. Okay, that answers my question. The second issue I had is I didn't see any reference in the staff report or any of the other comments I've seen. I didn't see any CEQA review. Was there any finding? Excuse me, through the chair, could I ask the city attorney or the city manager, was there a CEQA finding made in this context? Is there one in the record?
Are we going to actually do Q&A now?
We're actually in public comment.
This is
right now.
public comment.
Okay, I didn't see a CEQA comment, CEQA finding, and I didn't see any published notice for any CEQA finding in the Sacramento Valley Mirror, so I don't know whether or not a CEQA finding has been done. My issue is primarily to the historic nature of this building. It's over 60 years old. In the California Environmental Quality Act, that building is considered a historic building. It's a historic building in a historic district. One of the things I've admired from a distance is the incredible amount of energy that Judge Byrd has put into getting the courthouse restored in a way that is integral historically and in terms of historic preservation, which is one of the CEQA findings that should be made on this, in my opinion. I've also represented the petitioner and the appellant in the published case of Valley Advocates versus the City of Fresno, published in 2008, found at 160 Cal App 4th 1039. In that case, the Fifth District Court of Appeal decided that a categorical exemption could not be used for a relatively small change in a historic building. And so I didn't find any CEQA document here to review, but what I would respectfully suggest that there needs to be a review of the historic character of this building and the potential influence that it may have negatively an impact on the historic buildings nearby. There's a cluster of them. And the reason I'm bringing this to your attention is that Willows is well known as one of the best historically preserved cities of anywhere between Sacramento and Redding. It's really beautiful and it has incredible aesthetic appeal and aesthetic natural resource values, particularly that corner. And I'll describe to you what it's like coming out after work at sundown. And you stand out there and you see the buildings. The building that Randy Gardner's family is in has been there for years. Even this modest little building that used to be a title company, it still has historical integrity. It has historic resource value, and it is a real value to the main historic street of this city, Sycamore. By contrast, a reasonable alternative, you look over at Wood Street, which I saw many times. I never would buy a beer there, of course, but those are commercial areas where the type of building like this could be reasonable. It would be a very good place for them to do business. This location is not well suited, and procedurally, I think it's defective not to have some historic analysis done under CEQA. The other issue I had, and I tried to wrap my head around it, but I haven't seen the minutes, and I don't know whether there were findings or supported by us evidence or testimony that were presented to you this evening. I have not seen any of those. So I think from a procedural point of view that you really ought to stand back. And I'm not here threatening lawsuits. That isn't my job tonight. My job is to tell you what I think is a preferable course of action for this council to take, which is fair to the residents of the city of Willows, whether they have citizenship or not. And it's also fair to the applicant that he should have an opportunity to show what he plans to do that would be mitigation measures to the historic aesthetic impacts that this type of a store will have at that particular corner. Now that seems fair and reasonable to me. And what the finding was in the Valley Advocates case back in 2008 was that the Court of Appeal, Betty Dawson made that decision, was that staff had not properly advised and had erred in their information provided to the council. Again, I'm not here to beat up the staff. What I'm here to suggest and recommend and request is that you refer this matter back to the Planning Commission for further hearing where these issues can be addressed. Mr. Banger will have an opportunity to appear in front of the Planning Commission. They can go through a process where there can be further findings of fact or evidence presented, and you all will have what you should have, which is a Planning Commission with findings made and a resolution by the City Planning Commission that you all review on appeal, not a de novo appeal. This is a de novo appeal, I think, procedurally. And I think it's improper procedurally. Your city attorney may have a different view. But what I propose is to be fair to all parties and to be fair to protecting the historic and aesthetic values of Sycamore, which is really something else. And you're having a park as being restructured. Please take a pause and send this back to the planning commission. Let the people have a further say and let staff have the documentation that should be presented for your consideration. Better options, better choice, better opportunity for you to make your discretion and exercise it in a sound manner. Are there any questions from the council?
Thank
I beg your pardon?
This is just public comment.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
I
your
get no
comments.
questions. Okay,
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Harriman. Is there any further public comment from the audience tonight? Yes, ma'am. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay, Mr. Turner. Go ahead. That's okay. That's, yeah, that's okay.
I just think what we've heard tonight, the location begs the question, you know, and I appreciate what Mr. Betancourt says and what the applicant says, is, you know, there's rules and regulations by these businesses, and there's also kids we see around town with cigarettes and liquor all the time. So, you know, we can't hide behind that. I just get back that the proximity of this thing, it's located there for some reason, and I don't know what the demographics are for the business, but it's obviously going to attract high school kids in a disproportionate number. Since I do own the business behind, and with regard to, I appreciate his efforts to have lighting, especially 24-hour lighting. I just want to let him know that anytime we have even a motion sensor light at our building, somebody proceeded to get rid of it because it bothered somebody at some residence somewhere. So those lights get shot out. The other thing too is that, you know, he jumped the gun on the permit or on the city license, but he also jumped the gun on signage too. He had signage up for a while outside indicating the business soon to come. And I think that's what got a lot of people up in, where's this business just pop out of nothing? So it's a little bit, you know, we ought to feel like we're starting fresh on a new business coming to town, not trying to cut something off at the past. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Turner. Yes, ma'am.
Hello,
Hello.
my name
good
is
evening.
Carrie Lindberg.
Mhm.
I am a longtime friend of Henry. I'm just speaking on behalf of him today to point out a couple of things. For number one, I recognize and appreciate the historical buildings of Willows. But I would like to point out that there isn't much good of the buildings if they are left vacant for a number of years. That doesn't do anything good for our community. I would also like to point out that in the past, Henry has done several things for our community, such as donate to the fire department during the campfire, cases of water. He's also donated to, I have a family member who has leukemia. He put out donation jars to help raise money to fund some things there. And there's several other occasions where he has contributed to our community. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of his, I'm not sure what I would call it, but he's a great person. And I think that allowing him to show his business and capabilities would be great.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you very much. Any further public comment? Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to clarify that there is no state enforcement on the flavor ban. So yes, the products that I did show you are illegal, but it comes down to local enforcement. So our law enforcement would need to visit the retailer. They would need to find the illegal product, and then they would fine the retailer $250, not $250 per product, $250 per instance that they are found. Also, those products can sell from anywhere from $10 to $30. So the profit that's made really outweighs that little fine. And so this is a problem that we are seeing in Orland, that retailers are continuing to sell those products because there's no teeth behind the flavor ban. There is a agency that's called Si Se Puede, and they are working on a tobacco retail license for the city of Orland that would have that teeth that possibly would stop a retailer and they would lose their license from selling tobacco if they were found to sell to young people. But unless a jurisdiction has a tobacco retail license policy, there's no teeth behind the flavor ban or Prop 31.
Thank you. Any further public comments? Yes, sir. Well, I actually will, I would just, you'll have another opportunity for closing comments if you'd like. Mr. Banger, if you'd like to wait for that. Thank you. Any further, we're almost there. Any further public comments before we move forward? Yes, ma'am.
I just think that we really need to focus. I remember when you both interviewed me and I remember you saying, oh, whatever you want, bring. I just feel like, well, I can appreciate that comment. I found in the short time that I've been on the planning commission that I disagree with it because we need a plan and we're going to attract what we put out there. So what do we want on Sycamore Street where we have our parades, where we have all the events go down Sycamore Street? What do we want? I feel like we have a city council who's trying to make Willows grow. They want to have a sales tax pass. I feel like we have a planning commission that wants to see Willows grow in the short time that I've been here. But what the struggles have been for me personally is that there's no vision or plan. We can't just, you do this because you want to, you do this because you want to. This past Christmas, I traveled to the East Coast and I visited so many beautiful small towns and communities. And it was obvious that they had a plan. It wasn't just random, I want to open this here, I want to open this here. So again, this is not personal to Mr. Banger, but there is a place for a store like that. Let's make Willows what we want it to be. Let's make Willows a place that people want to come and visit. Let's make Sycamore Street, let's make Butte Street, let's make these streets an area that people want to come down to. And there's many ways we can do that. And I'll just throw in the signage. Let's get people downtown, but let's have businesses that they would want to go to. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further public comments? Good evening.
You guys saw the letter I wrote. My comment is that allowing a business like, and I have no disrespect, great guy, support the community, awesome. However, do we want our downtown to look like Florin Road? Do we want it to look like Mack Road, Sacramento? Do we want it to look like Rancho Cordova, where you have these convenience stores just popping up everywhere and you lose the essence of a small community that drives tourism? When you look at towns like Davis, downtown Davis, you look at downtown Winters, look at Woodland, look at Auburn, look at these historical areas that are bringing in the tourists. I think that's what we need to think about. I mean, Sycamore Street really should be called Wood Street or Main Street, Willow. I mean, it is our main street. So that's what I ask you to take into consideration if you're going to approve this building.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any further public comments? Any further? One last time? No further public comments? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for your input in the reference to this matter tonight. It's much appreciated, definitely.
Said you were going to give Henry his last shot.
I'm getting it. Almost there, David. Is there any additional evidence to be presented to City Council from the appellant and or the staff at this time? Anything further?
I just wanted to remind the council that you're considering this on appeal, and therefore, if the council wishes to add any additional conditions of approval that were above and beyond what was already in what was presented before the Planning Commission, certainly you have the discretion to consider that. You heard some good comments this evening that might raise some concerns for the council. I don't know, and you could consider adding some conditions of approval that are appropriate and fit some to address some of the concerns you heard this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Brown. So anything along those lines, Ms. Brown, Mr. Betancourt, anything further from staff? Any final
Beyond
comments?
that, no, I don't think so.
Mr. Banger, please. Thank you. Your closing statements.
Just a couple things. If somebody is wondering why the business license was issued in 2023 and we are in February of 2024, why we took so long to work on the building, it's just because I had open heart surgery. So that took me out of the commission. And number two, I wanted to point out, earlier, there were some comments that there's no enforcement on tobacco ban, flavored tobacco ban. Yes, there is. I have friends who have stores all over the state. There is enforcement, state. They come in, city comes in, checks. If they find anything, there's heavy fines. And thirdly, I want to definitely mention that if something happens in Oroville, Orland, or Yuba City, that cannot be compared to what I'm trying to do. And there are a couple comments were made earlier, stores like this. I just don't understand, what does that mean, store like this? What is wrong with these stores? I'm sure people who are staying stores like this, they will be coming to my store if my store gets there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banger, for your closing remarks. Well, at this time, we'll be moving toward council discussion momentarily. So this time it is 8:24 p.m. and I'll close the public hearing in reference to this matter at this time. Gentlemen, council discussion. Thoughts, comments?
Well, I have some questions that perhaps that Mr. Banger could answer. Is that something that I could ask at this time?
Absolutely. Yes.
Could you share for us your vision of this store?
Yes, sir. Very modern looking. No signs outside other than it's gonna say Henry's. If some people got offended in the past for the banner I had just for one day, I'm not gonna say I apologize. That might be a mistake. It was just to drum up the sport, just to let people know that what's coming there. We started working, mostly people were stopping by and asking, what's gonna be there? What's gonna be there? So we just put the banner out, just for that reason. And, but store inside is gonna look super modern, nothing trashy, hardwood floors, brand new fixtures, great coffee area where office people can come and, enjoy a cup of coffee. And there's going to be maybe a couple seatings outside. They can sit and relax or for 10 minutes or whatever. But it's not going to be looking like stores from the past.
And you're going to sell tobacco,
We will sell tobacco,
beer and wine,
snacks,
liquor?
groceries, no hard. No groceries, coffee, Slurpees. And in future, we have planned to sell fresh juice.
and heated snacks.
Yes, sir. The rolling snacks.
Now, you say 10% is going to be dedicated to
Tobacco,
tobacco.
which seems
Do
like
you
it.
have that same number for beer and wine, or is that?
Beer and wine is going to be, so 4 doors, beer and wine, that could be maybe 22%. The rest is all dedicated to groceries, snacks, candies, coffee.
Any
Uh,
separation inside the store between the tobacco products and the rest of the store?
Yes, sir. Tobacco products are strictly behind the cashier. There's no self-service. And as I mentioned earlier, nobody has ID. Even people of my age, I'm gonna be 61. I have to have ID. If I don't have ID, no sale. It's not that we don't want to sell, it's our system will not allow the cashier to proceed any further unless the ID is scanned. And we're not gonna keep those records for for our purposes. You scan the ID, it allows the sale to move forward.
I think that's it for the moment, unless you have some.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Vaughn,
I have no question.
any questions? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Banger, you mentioned earlier in your comments, you mentioned security lighting.
Yes, sir.
Exterior security lighting in the front.
Yes, sir.
If you said it, and you know, my ears don't work real well anymore. How about the remainder of the building, sides and rear
No, sir,
access?
all the way
All the
around,
way.
360.
Is that what you said? I missed that.
360. There's gonna be security lighting, floodlights, 360. We can make sure it doesn't flood the neighborhood, but enough to cover the premises and partly neighborhood streets. And we are going to have security cameras as well
Security-
on 24/7
the security cameras inside and outside?
and outside. Yes, sir.
Okay, and
It-
recorded?
Recording,
Okay.
there's gonna be a sign posted on the window. Yes, sir.
Very good, thank you. I think those are the only questions I have at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Thomas, Mr. Vaughn, any further comments,
Well,
thoughts?
you know, my initial issue is America was founded on an opportunity for all free and fair competition. Competition provides citizens with good products, good service, and typically at a better price. Many of the letters we received talk about who take business away from other businesses. In America, it's competition. So I disregard those concerns because the truth of the matter is competition is what America is founded on, and everybody's entitled to pursue business. I have to ask, is a CEQA issue required? Byron?
There was a CEQA finding in the resolution brought to the planning commission, and there will be a CEQA finding in any resolution that's brought to this.
So if we move forward with this, you would come back at another meeting for us to approve that? Is that what I understand? Or is that approved all here?
The reference said that the CEQA issue had been addressed and that it was a non-issue. That's what it says in the material.
It's an a CEQA exemption that would be, that council would need to find. And the planning commission would have found if they had approved the permit.
Do we know the age of this building? Is it in fact
1962.
historical, as Mr. Harriman suggests?
I think it was built in the 1960s.
1962.
So it's historical by 2 years? Oh, I thought historic was 60. But there's no finding that
Is
this
it-
building is historic.
Is it on the do you know if it's on the National Registry or has any? I mean, that's an eligibility.
I used to be the president of North State Title, and I know that we occupied that property for many, many years. So I don't remember ever being noticed as historic.
Staff.
The citation for council
Wait,
is.
excuse me.
My understanding of staff's research and work is that it's not, and that there is an exemption. to
Okay, thank you.
CEQA.
All I needed to
That's
know.
the answer to the question.
Yeah, that's my point, is the Public Resources Code, section 5024.1 subsections A and C, subsection 3, that provides that if it's 50 years or older, it is deemed to be a historic resource. It can be considered under CEQA. There are things you can do, but you do have to make a decision on it, whether it's a categorical exemption, negative declaration, whatever, but you do have to address it. That's a procedural issue. And
Thank you.
And I don't think that's been addressed.
Mr. Harriman,
Yeah,
thank you
you're
for your
welcome, sir.
comments. Public comments are over. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Thomas, anything? further?
The other problem I have is that building's been vacant for over 5 years. And I don't understand perhaps the concerns that a vacant building is better than an occupied building with a business. And it seems to me that a building that has only one sign outside and his statement that there's no outside banners or things like that would not change the exterior alter look of that building. And with the added lights, it improves the corner lighting. So I, in the spirit of America, competition breeds competition, and I don't see how that vacant building for 5 years is better than having that. But based on the concerns of the people, I might consider suggesting that we, if we were to approve a use permit, put a time limit on it, to make sure that the applicant met the requirements and didn't raise the issues that are the concern of the people in front of us tonight. I'm sure I'll have more to say, but
No, stop there. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Buden?
Well, this is a tough one. I have a lot of friends in that audience out there. Respect. But this isn't about tobacco. This isn't about alcohol. Tobacco issue is a global, particularly a national. For 10 years, I was a grant funded for tobacco cessation, dealing with youth and other industry. And I was in an industry that was funded by tobacco. So I was so far outside of line, they're surprised I'm alive. But I believe the cessation of tobacco and all the efforts you're making to stop the kids from smoking and vaping is a real issue, but it has very little to do with the decision to open a store anywhere that sells tobacco. It's about the youth and the people who use it and how it's otherwise done. And I could go on, but I won't. So this isn't about tobacco. It's not about alcohol. We have liquor stores. Carlene has a liquor store. At least she owns a building that has a liquor store. It's not about alcohol. This is about the fact that there are people who don't want that building to look like it would look if it was a mini mart. I can remember sitting in this chamber and Caltrans had come forward and said they were going to modernize Wood Street. They were going to put lights and center dividers, and they were going to make that street a magnet to draw people off of the freeway down to Tehama. And the people that showed up the night that was considered were all against it. You should have heard the stories. I can't back out. There won't be a left turn into my legal office. They killed it. And now we have what we had before that opportunity existed. And there it is. It's a crummy looking street and it draws nobody downtown or east. I remember the casino story. Oh my gosh, amoral dialogues about everybody that goes to the casino is somehow, I won't fill in the blank. I remember other scenarios that we were offered to do and that we personally, individually, said no because we didn't want it. And I'm not talking about this group. I'm talking about individuals. I once tried to put a food vendor business across the street from Holly, bombed it, killed it, just didn't want it there. The problem I have is that we have ordinances. We have a general plan. We just approved the general plan, which says what can and cannot be done on the streets of Willows and the streets of Glenn County. And if we didn't want to have retail on Sycamore or whatever on any street, we should have done it through the general plan process. We have the ordinances that define what can be done. Our lawyer knows all this stuff. And those are the mechanisms by which we define and limit and cause to happen that which is growth in the community. How do we manage if we can arbitrarily, because we don't like something, show up and kill it despite the rules and regulations that say it can be done? How does that work? I mean, I don't know about developing in Willows or Glenn County if walking into this room is a death sentence. So tobacco's not the issue. Alcohol's not the issue. It's all about that building and the people who see it as it is today and want it to stay that way. Are they personal reasons? Probably. Are they valid? Somewhat, sure. I'm sure they are. I would really love for Sycamore to be a beautiful, attractive, magnetic street that people came to. You ever seen anybody walk on Wood Street? I'm sorry, Sycamore. Foot traffic. I talk all the time about foot traffic. There is no foot traffic on Sycamore. That restaurant on the corner of Butte and Sycamore, the poor guy's struggling to stay open. because there is no foot traffic. Economic growth and development is important. I know about healthy development, right development, or otherwise known as development I like. I like, meaning whoever I am. So I have difficulty with it. I have difficulty with not following the rules and regulations that were created for the purpose of development in the community in Willows, whether it's on Sycamore or Wood or Butte or Tehama or Humboldt. I've seen too much of this, where we just arbitrarily decide we don't like something. So we gather all of our friends and we show up in mass and we convince people using feel-good, lovey-lovey statements about good and bad and evil to kill it. Either we're going to grow or we're not going to grow. And if we're not going to grow, then get ready, because there will be no services. There will be no crap. There will be no repairs to the road. There will be no lights over your building. There will be nothing here. And I'm not saying that this building is this opportunity is the cure for the economic issues that we face. But we have a history of killing economic opportunity based on small, selective value systems that have nothing to do with the law. And I'm sorry that I feel this way. I should say, Mr. Hanson, Mayor Hanson, and Mr. Thomas, council member, these are just my opinions. And I feel strongly about them. I wish you all the best with tobacco cessation. I worked hard on it. And I was grant funded as you are. And I am not a fan of alcohol. My parents had alcohol problems, so I was a teetotaler for most of my life, and then I saw the light, whatever. Anyway, so it's about the building. So if you want it to be vacant, it'll be vacant. If you want it to look like it looks like today and yesterday and 5 years ago, it'll look just like that. And there'll be no foot traffic, and there'll be no people, and there'll be the next guy that shows up that wants to develop the next building down the street is going to read about this and go, I ain't going there. We already have that reputation. You probably know that. So, sir, I'm sorry about that. That was an editorial.
No, that's certainly fine, Mr. Vaughn.
I actually believe with our attorney friend, I think we should send it back to the planning commission. I think we should have a larger, broader forum of dialogue about this that has nothing to do with what they sell, because last time I checked, you can't tell businesses what they can sell unless it's against the law. If that's true, then I'm okay. If it's not true, it's news to me. But I do think maybe because there are feelings involved in people that we should maybe go back to the planning commission. And I know how Holly feels, and I know how Karen feels. And I do know there was a motion to approve it that started that planning commission meeting. So it isn't everybody that thinks this is a bad idea. So again, my apologies. You just heard it all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. No apologies necessary. You're just here doing your job as a council member. Right. And yeah, I agree with all of the comments from my colleagues, Rick and David. I agree with all of them. And it is, unfortunately, this is this situation, and when you serve in any elected body, that more than occasionally, frequently, you come up against is, for example, the petition. I've got a number of very good friends who signed a petition opposing this project, and a number of not only friends but people who I admire and respect. A number of them are here tonight too. Mr. Garner. Mr. Garner is a good man. He's an excellent attorney. He's a friend of mine. Randy owns a very attractive building that was, formerly his law practice for many, many years, just to the south of this location, which is formerly the title company, as many of us know, until a number of years ago. And since then, Mr. Garner has relocated his practice a couple of blocks west, as most of us know. But Randy, I completely I understand. I understand why you would be opposed to having, a convenience store type establishment next to your building. I completely understand. Completely understand. And David, your comments about getting down the nitty gritty, if you will, for lack of a better term. The real purpose here, it's not alcohol, it's not tobacco. Okay, these are lawful products. Tobacco is a lawful agricultural product in the United States. It's a lawful product to be sold to people 21 years of age or older in the state of California, as is alcohol. This isn't a quote unquote liquor store. Henry has applied for a beer and wine license. Won't be selling, hard liquor. Like I said, you know, I'm intimately familiar with alcohol, well, not only alcohol enforcement, but especially tobacco enforcement. The California Department of Public Health employs 100 peace officers. Approximately half of those officers work every county and every jurisdiction in the state investigating tobacco enforcement cases. That enforcement is funded by the sale of tobacco, and every establishment in the state of California, every establishment is visited at least once per year by an agent, by a law enforcement officer, at least one law enforcement officer in the state of California to make sure that they are in compliance. If they're not in compliance, the fines are heavy and they are severe, and that does and will put owners of establishments who are breaking the law out of business. They're initially, you know, fines are imposed, and then after that, additional actions are taken. It can be very expensive. The California Alcoholic Beverage Control heavily regulates the sale of alcohol. If there's an establishment selling alcohol or tobacco to minors, it's unlawful. And David, you mentioned we're up here, you know, our you know, as city council members, it's our duty to do what we feel in our head and our heart, and following the law, what is the best course of action. The findings from our very competent staff here of the three different considerations we're looking at tonight on the appeal. Number one, is the proposed project consistent with the central commercial zoning district? That's finding number one. It is consistent with our general plan and our commercial zoning. In other words, it's an allowable business. Finding number three, well, that goes to finding number one and finding number three, and in conformance with the general plan designation. That finding was affirmative. The Planning Commission, and David, you mentioned it, the action, there was no resolution approved or denied at the Planning Commission level. There was a motion to approve the major use permit, and it failed for lack of a second. So the Planning Commission determined that in the majority, and it failed for lack of a second, that the operation would be detrimental to the public health, safety, welfare, and or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity. In particular, the majority commission cited the business plan to sell tobacco products near a school as evidence of being detrimental to the health and safety of minors in the community. We received letters both in opposition and in support of Mr. Banger's project. And one of them from Mr. Josh Nehus really hit home, and basically covered the, you know, along my thoughts I just made. These weren't Mr. Nehus' thoughts, but when I saw his letter, I think it very recently, within the last day or two, those are the points I just mentioned, and Mr. Nehus, you know, basically covered those points. So here we are in Willows, a small town of, you know, roughly 6,300 citizens, right? We sit on roughly 2.5 to 2 3/4 square miles. And I know it's been alluded that this establishment or proposed establishment would be 2 blocks from the high school. Well, there's a lot of things that are 2 blocks from the high school when when you dial it in. You know, it was mentioned earlier tonight. Only reason I'm mentioning it, first thing came to my mind, the Willows Liquor Store for 60 years or so was in business, right? Mrs. Myers owns that shop right now, or a former location of Willows Liquor Store. Very successful business. I knew the family extremely well. They ran an exceptional business for decades. The McLeod family. It was a successful business 1 block farther east of this proposed location. So I just point this out. You know, these are lawful products. Sure. Are individuals going to break the law and, obtain, alcohol or tobacco products? Of course, right? It's, you know, from the beginning of time, you know, I would say, you know, it's, you know, it's the 80-20% rule, if you will, formerly 90-10%. 20% of people, you know, take up 80% of any law enforcement agency's time, right? Those are the individuals that are not doing the right thing and are not following the law. Sure, are you going to have high school students that acquire unlawful substances as well as controlled substances? Of course, of course. I applaud the efforts of the tobacco, of the Glenn County Health Department, tobacco personnel are here tonight and who spoke. Also, thank you to the young man who is a high school student who spoke in opposition to tobacco. You know, I appreciate that. And like, I just want to reiterate, lawfully, you are unable to purchase alcohol or tobacco products in the state of California under 21 years of age. It comforts me that Henry's comments about the electronic systems, if approved, the electronic systems that he would have in place require an identification to be submitted or scanned or whatever in order to be for the purchase to be accepted. I applaud that. I applaud that measure drastically. Rick, you mentioned America, right? This is still a capitalist society, and whether a business is successful or is not successful or whatever endeavor that is, it all comes down to supply and demand and the market share, right? So if this application would be approved, if the business was, you know, not in the right location or the business was not operated efficiently and appropriately and correctly, then the business could very well fail. That's a capitalist society. I don't buy the argument on the you know, the sales tax. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't necessarily think that, sure, it is a capitalist society and customers have a right to go to whatever retail outlet they want to go to, right? Will it impact other business? I don't know. There are a lot of customers out there. I don't really buy that argument. The health and safety, like I say, that location is still within the central commercial zoning district. So this would be an acceptable location for a business of that type. That is a good looking building. It always has been a good looking building. It was a title company. You know, I utilize the services of that the former title companies that were in that building. And I believe it was a title company, I mean, ever since it was built, as far as I know. But I utilize those services personally. And excuse me, I think, Rick, you said 5 years. I want to say that building's been vacant about 8 years, but I may be, is it 5 years? Since the title
No,
company?
probably more than that, because I've been retired for 3.5.
Mhm.
And when I hired the staff out of that office, that probably was 2016 or 17.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it's probably been longer than 5 years.
Yeah, I would say it's, zeroing in on maybe 10 years, but yeah, I would guess estimate 8 years anyway. But, it's been a vacant building, since then. Like I say, it is a good looking building. I just, like I say, whatever decision we make tonight is going to upset, individuals on either side, whichever decision we make. Individuals that spoke with me, just to clarify, I take my obligation as city council member seriously. We are sitting here as the appellate body for the planning commission. I've been served in that role, I believe 4 other times. In addition to tonight, I believe this is the 5th time since I've been on the city council in reference to an appeal. But neither here nor there. It's I don't get involved in, you know, in the details as an appellate body. We have an obligation and we've taken an oath to be honest. And the three of us here tonight, we have not, you know, gone out and contacted individuals and done our own little mini investigations on this. Why? Because that's inappropriate. That's absolutely inappropriate, not allowed. And if one does that, they need to recuse themselves. Or if they have any kind of a financial obligation, they need to recuse themselves. And so we're hearing the evidence and testimony for the first time tonight, okay? I'm not going to go out and violate, I would never violate my oath of office and go out and talk to people about it before an appeal hearing if I'm going to be sitting in an appellate body. For the planning commissioners that are here tonight, I definitely appreciate your service. You know, when we do have planning commission vacancies, we don't see a lot of individuals stepping forward. We get one or two individuals stepping forward. You know, once again, volunteer ranks, people stepping up nowadays is difficult. So I applaud you for your service, and there are several of you here tonight and also former planning commission members as well. And I respect everything you do. And you'll notice the individuals that have been on a planning commission since I've been on the city council, I don't attend city planning commission meetings. You've never seen me in a planning commission meeting. There's a reason for that. Because in the event of an appeal, which we're hearing tonight, I don't want to have any even the slightest thought of inappropriate conduct. So I don't attend the meetings. I don't want to be, so that way I'm not put in any spot. I'm not asking any questions. I don't have the opportunity to come up and make any statements, because if I did, I would have to recuse myself from the appellate body. And if that happened tonight, I don't know what we do, because there's only three of us here left, so we have a bare quorum. So, but anyway, aside from that, that's why I don't attend planning commission meetings for this very reason. So we're hearing the evidence presented tonight. The only thing that we've seen as a council, obviously, are the staff reports and your letters and emails that have been submitted. I thank you very much for your letters, emails, and comments on both sides of the matter. In my count, it's running probably about a 50-50 on the different correspondences, pros and cons. But I have had a number of individuals tell me that they were in favor of this project. That's all. I did not engage in any conversation. That's all. I told them my position. I can't talk to you about it. But, and other than the letters and emails I received from the individuals opposing, as well as the petition, I haven't been contacted by any one individual opposing the project. The only opposition that I have seen have been, like I just said, the information that's submitted that we're reviewing tonight. With all that being said, it's, 2 blocks from the high school campus. Sure, it's 2 blocks from the high school campus. I had one 30-year-old, young professional who follows city council
Mr. Mayor,
processes. Yes. Yes, sir.
if I may,
Yes.
then we move to the message, the call.
Yes, yeah, well, just one moment. I'm almost finished.
Okay.
I had thank you, Rick. I had one 30-year-old professional that who was an alumni of Willows High School that I'm extremely close to, and who contacted me and said that, echoing Mr. Nahue's comments in his letter, that she wished that some convenience store would have been, in close proximity to this high school when they had their 30-minute lunch break, just from to go grab lunch, and from a safety standpoint, as far as easy, quick access, rather than having to dart, blocks farther down, chewing up time to get in a hurry and potentially something happening. But with that, I think I'll stop. I'll wrap up my comments there. I just wanted to, once again, thank everyone for your comments and your opinions and the time you've taken, to make your comments known to the city council. And this is due process at work that you're seeing. And like I say, we're the appellate body and conducting due process in for the business of the city. Mr. Thomas.
I'd like to move the resolution of the City Council of the City of Willow, State of California, upholding the appeal of the Planning Commission determining and approving use permit MUP 2303 to allow establishment of a mini market within the existing 2020 square feet commercial building for property located at 360 West Sycamore Street. Assessors parcel number 002-171-017 within the central commercial zone for a period of 5 years. So we would have to apply for a new permit beyond 5 years. So the existing folks here in this room can watch to make sure that it does not destroy the community as the fear is. And also to add the condition that no exterior banners be allowed on the outside of the building. And under the 5th whereas, it says the planning commission does find the proposed project qualifies for categorical exempt under sections 15301 and 15303 be changed to the city council.
Mr. Thomas has moved to approve the resolution in reference to item 8A, upholding the appeal of the planning commission as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bodden has seconded. Further discussion?
Madam Chair, Ms. Broad, to use the term, what we interviewed Ms. Broad for the planning commission, and I was referencing that we need to be willing to take chances and be open to very unusual and outside the box ideas, but also within the bounds of all of the rules and regulations that apply to the development of any site in the city or in the county. So I hope that helps clarify that it wasn't anything goes.
Thank you, Mr. Bodden. Mr. Thomas and Mr. Bodden, in reference to the motion on the floor, you addressed some conditions of approval. I would like to add conditions of approval in reference to the signage and lighting as well, if that could be included. I think this needs to be really closely monitored and dialed in, and
I would agree with you. If you can identify that for staff, what you're actually referring to. I would think that the outside lighting should be in such that it does not disturb the neighborhood, but does provide security lighting around the building.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well,
And the sign, I wrote originally approved sign application, but I figured that was something that you'd have to do anyway.
okay. Did you mention signage? in
No,
Your comments?
just no banner.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I would
No
really,
exterior banners or signage, and he affirmed that he would only have the 2 signs in the front window that said serving no one under 21 served, and the warning of the perils of using alcohol and tobacco.
well, yes, I definitely, I'd like to see a condition of approval be imposed in reference to signage, so it doesn't, so the building maintains its attractive decor.
I would agree.
It doesn't not look tacky in any way,
I would agree.
as well as the security, effective security lighting, and as you say, it's not to disturb residents. Those would be two of my the conditions I'd like to see included in that. Additionally, is to maintain the outstanding look of the building, both interior and exterior. If that could be included as a condition of approval as well. And Rick, you mentioned a 5-year? A 5-year?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good idea.
that way that if there is degrading of the neighborhood based on that, there would be an opportunity to redress those.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Thomas. Would you be willing to amend the motion to include those conditions?
Yes.
Yes. As I indicated earlier, there's a motion on the floor, been moved and seconded to approve the resolution upholding the appeal of the planning commission determination. And there's no further discussion. This will be a roll call vote. Mr. City Clerk?
Councilmember Thomas,
Yay.
Councilmember Bodden. Mayor Hanson.
Aye. Matter passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attendance and your participation in tonight's meeting. We'll take a 10-minute recess at this time, and the time is 9:02 PM. Thank you. Yeah, it's, ready? Okay, thank you, Amos. Well, good evening, everyone. It's still February 13th. Time is 9:12 PM. Reconvening into open session. So we're going to continue items 9A and C. And for the next meeting, as they are not time sensitive. There is one time sensitive matter. It's 9B, the Glen Groundwater Authority Proposition 218 study matter. This is agendized in order to discuss the Glen Groundwater Authority's upcoming Proposition 218 study and provide feedback and direction. And I ask that this item be placed on the agenda.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes. Marty.
Did you also want to continue items 11A and B closed session?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Very good. Bottom of the page, Marty. Thank you for pointing that out. If staff would recommend to continue item 11A and B, items 11A and B, that would be perfectly fine.
We do
Requires
recommend it,
motion,
yeah.
I so move. It does not require a motion, consensus of the council. We in agreement to that?
Aye.
Aye. In agreement to that? Okay, very good. In agreement to moving forward with continuing items 9A and C as well? Yes. Okay, all right, very good. Thank you. So in reference to item 9B, as you know, I sit on the Glen Groundwater Authority and have represented the City of Willows since 2017. We've started our Proposition 218 process and we're moving forward. And historically, the Groundwater Authority, the first 2 years when we were formed in July of 2017, we had 9 member agencies, City of Willow, City of Portland being the 2 city agencies within the subbasin. All 9 member agencies supplied the funding for the first 2 years of operation at $10,000 each per agency to get off the ground and running. After that, we initiated our first Proposition 218 process, which moved us up to a fee, a per acre fee. Currently, which we pay $1.50 per acre, and it's been set at $1.50 per acre now for at least the last 3 years. The first year we were at $1.61 per acre, and I'm looking for my staff report. So we've tried to keep fees as absolutely low as possible. The maximum fee is set at $1.93 per acre currently. So we're moving forward with our Proposition 218 study, currently paying $1.50 per acre. And the method of operation that Glen Groundwater Authority, as well as our sister agency, the Calusa Groundwater Authority, is utilized is that the incorporated cities in Glen County, obviously Willows, Norland, and in Calusa County, Calusa and Williams that are part of our greater Calusa subbasin. The cities have paid that $1.50 per acre fee. Well, in Glen County, it's $1.50 on behalf of the citizens for a couple of different reasons. First of all, to save not to waste administrative costs. It's all taxpayer money on even just the postage alone for any Proposition 218 notices would really increase the cost, not to mention the processing, the tax rolls for say, quarter acre or more or less sized properties within the cities of Orland and Willows. So just to simplify things and to keep control costs, all four of the incorporated cities within the Calusa subbasin have paid the per acreage fee, annual fee, as a line item. And it's under $3,000 a year. It's $1.50 per acre. We sit on 1,737.29 acres. Of that, there are a few acres that are exempt. Federal and tribal acreage is exempt. But currently I found out, and I was surprised that exemption, we're still paying for those few acres that are tribal and federal. Federal here would be the post office, the Forest Service would be the largest lot, and the Bureau of Reclamation offices, and tribal would be Northern Valley Indian Health acreage. It's not on the, it's a per acre fee. It's a per acre fee. So the question before you tonight, as we move forward in this 218 process, the city of Orland has agreed to continue the same process covering that fee, the per acreage fee, for their constituents, which in essence excludes the citizens of Willows from the Proposition 218 process. In other words, because the cities agree to pay the bill. So, with the exception of the acreage within the city of Willows and city of Orland, every other property owner within the Lane County portion of the Calusa subbasin would receive a Proposition 218 notice. So my question before you gentlemen is whether you'd be willing to continue with the same practice of covering the per acreage fee for our residents. We're in the process of setting a fee. Our goal is to keep the fees as absolutely low as possible, and that's what we've done historically. We're just working through this process now, but we did move to right now it's a flat per acreage fee. What at my request, our ad hoc committee, and I was very pleased. We had a meeting yesterday. We're looking at currently, we're involved in some litigation, pending potential litigation, involving dryland farmers who believe they're being charged too much. So we're looking at different proposals now, and I requested a separate classification for urban municipal water users, which Willows and Orland follow. Okay. And the committee has agreed to that. So we had extensive discussions yesterday at our groundwater board meeting about this. We're going to have 4 user classifications. One's going to be dry land, which was a dry land, which is non-irrigated dry land, grazing, stockland, primarily along the western boundaries of the subbasin primarily. Second classification would be groundwater user and groundwater area. Okay. Third classification would be surface water user, surface water area. And the fourth, as I mentioned, would be urban municipal water user. My request is to keep the urban municipal water users fees in relationship to what our surface water fees would be, which would all in effect be less than the groundwater user fees. We're promoting use of surface water when absolutely available with the Groundwater Authority in order to conserve groundwater and prevent subsidence and overdrafting. So that's my brief description of a very complicated situation in general. Asking you gentlemen if you would be willing to consider with the same method of operation that's been successful with us since we formed the Groundwater Authority, with the city of Willows covering that per acreage fee on behalf of the constituents in the city.
Question.
Yes, sir.
If Cal Water is pumping groundwater for its citizens, could the cost be added to their franchise fee?
A good question.
Have an agreement already with them. I don't know that we can just open that up and then we could try to ask them, I suppose, and see. what happens? I mean, usually those franchise agreements are for several years. You can't just sort of change the rules, but I can look and see when that expires and take a look at that, I suppose.
Well, I would,
I'm sorry
I
to
would s-
interrupt. I think we walked them up, Jen. Make sure.
So we lose internet, we have to stop.
Well, you don't have to stop. You
You
can.
can talk, just can't do.
You can't take action, but you could keep talking.
So what's the cost to the city for this program?
It's, I've got, you know what, my, everything's spread out here.
Said it's about 3,000,
It was,
correct?
just, $2,606. Currently.
so I'm all agreeable to that. But if we could, that's the, water, pick up the stuff, there's gonna be
Well-
nothing in the water.
We'll take a look at the
Well, they are
franchise
now,
agreement.
absolutely.
See.
You know, here in the city, we're a little different than Orlando.
Vote for that.
Because we have about roughly 300 acres of surface water use southern city. Orland. would. But they're unique because Orland is served by Orland water users, so they've got ditches running right through town. They do, they're their own water provider.
Water, but now water's pumping groundwater. This groundwater authority is all because of drought.
No, it's
No,
Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. Governor Jerry Brown in 2014 in the legislature. Yeah.
When did they start adding this?
2019.
These new. Probably
No.
since the advent of our.
Okay, so are we good, Carolyn?
No, it sounds like the webcast is completed, so he can't get that back up.
Okay.
But he can record. He can record, but you notice the meeting for people to participate via Zoom, and so you cannot take action on this item without there being a broadcast.
Okay, well, we'll have to, and we're almost there. We'll have to continue this matter, apparently.
Well, it's
That's
it's a
the
couple
law.
$1,000.
Wow.
I do think asking Cal Water, Rick's point is extremely well made and in all of my world of business, because there's an existing agreement that expires in 3 years, does not stop me ever from going in and going, I know we got 2 years to go, but that's what I do.
Well, we're continued until.
We'll
Doesn't matter.
continue.
We
We'll
can't
have
take
to
an action
unfortunately have to
anyways, right?
continue. Yeah.
Gary, I've got
Carolyn.
kind of an historical information question. It's not.
Sure.
It could be. I was on the Board of Supervisors in 2000, 2004, and we created that groundwater ordinance. The other thing at that time, it was being pushed by Department of Water Resources and others to be able to start actually monitoring and measuring our water system, our underground water. And of course, I got beat up because I used to compare it to, it's like a checkbook. If you can't manage it, if you can't measure it, you can't
Right.
manage. Is this now what that whole effort evolved into from?
Yeah, it's, yeah, that's what we're engaged in now, more and more measuring and more science and more data.
And that's what the
Absolutely.
Groundwater Authority is overseeing, is
Right.
that collection of
Right.
information.
For groundwater sustainability plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
because everybody's concern is if we measure it, we can sell it,
Oh, absolutely.
you know.
So
and-
Sure.
Right. you know,
Yeah,
so-
no, it's,
Okay.
it's
Thank you.
frightening. We're all dependent on it,
Right.
so it's all about protecting the resource and preventing subsidence, and not overdrafting. Yeah, absolutely.
Did we
Sorry,
adjourn?
you said something.
No, I was just curious, is this part of the whole state plan of monitoring private wells as well? Like
Oh,
that?
it's
is this
a
from-
basin by basin by basin by basin. we're very fortunate here because we have 10-member agencies that we're actually working together. We work well together. There are locations in the state that it's the exact opposite of that. There's tiny, groundwater, sustainability agencies all over the place. They're larger, we're the largest, we're among the largest subbasins in the state. And the Calusa subbasin has been, I mean, it's worked out very well both with the Glen Groundwater Authority, which working well. Like I say, we work well together. We're all under the same Sigma rules in the state of California.
Well, one of the
Anyway,
other.
We're still on the air.
Are we
We're,
live?
we're being recorded. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so are we good, Carolyn, or do we have to adjourn?
We're not making action. We're just
Not
discussing.
make any action,
Yeah.
not take any action.
No, he was just answering a question that I had because
No, I'm just checking. Here we are. Okay.
Still the same.
Still the same.
Webinar's gone, so
Okay. Well, with that, it looks like it's,
Hey, Marty, I need a couple of things
Yeah.
from you. I was going to do it in comments, but I'll just come and see you afterwards.
may we proceed with comments? Carolyn?
Yes,
Very good.
there's no action there.
Okay. Very good. Well, we will cover item 10, comments and reports. Item 10A, council correspondence. I have received no council correspondence. The only correspondence I received was in reference to the appeal that we've heard. Item 10B, city council comments and reports. City manager Marty Brown,
I don't have any comments or
nothing.
reports. No.
Item 10C. No, I'm sorry, city council. I'm sorry, I jumped to 10C.
You threw me.
Item 10B, I'm sorry, through me too. Item 10B, city council comments and reports. Mr. Bob.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor Hanson. Marty, we had a Imagine Willows meeting Monday night, and I need your help because I've fallen a little bit behind on the status of the pool. So I would respectfully request a breakdown of the grant money that shows all of the dollars relative to the pool and where they are going to apply and where they come from. And then the other thing I would like is a map. I know I've seen these things where there's a map that shows what you're doing with the park, and then it also includes what we're doing with the pool.
So a map of Sycamore Park or a
Yes,
map of the
well,
whole city?
No, just the park, and then just a breakdown of the current status of the pool project.
Like a
Dollars.
conceptual design of the park and the
Yes, ma'am.
improvements.
Yes, yes. I thought you did.
Unless it was submitted with the application, which. I
Okay,
do
if you
not
could
know.
look.
Yeah. A cost breakdown for the pool. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, whatever we've got. So I know at one time there was talk about the bathrooms, there was talk about the wading pool or whatever.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah, I just don't think we have conceptual designs. We haven't
very
hired
good.
anybody. yet.
All right, well, I'll come get it tomorrow, whatever you got.
Yep.
Okay,
Just email it to you.
sure, that'd be great. Thank you. The last thing is on Thursday at noon, Glenn County Planning Director Marty Thomas is going to be a speaker here in town. I encourage you all to come and listen to him. He's a interesting young man. He's been around a long time and he's kind of under the radar. So let's go bring him out. Thursday at noon. Where's he talking at? He's talking at the Black Bear Restaurant as part of the Rotary Club. 12 o'clock noon. Marty Thomas. I encourage you to attend.
Thank you, Mr. Bud. Mr. Thomas?
Continuing with my effort for economic, I've been talking some more with the folks on the south end of town at 57 between I-5 and 99. They have engaged a real estate firm and they have put together a real nice piece for marketing that property for a hotel, restaurant, convention center, lounge. And so when that actually goes live, I will share that. We can share it with the council, but it's, they're moving forward, looking for a outright purchase or a joint venture partner. But they did a real nice 6-page website that's going to have connections to due diligence and the rest of it. So it's exciting. So they're moving forward with it.
Very good, Rick. Thank you. Anything further?
No.
Mr. Hudson.
Yeah, so I made the library meeting that they had last week and learned about a couple different things that I thought I would share. Although we lost our Zoom, so we lost the online people that were there. But just learned about a couple different things. In June, they're planning what's called Wild Things. where they have somebody that brings in essentially exotic animals that have been rescued, bring them in here for the kids to come check them out. And then they also have a event called Lunch with the Library, which they choose, I believe it's one day out of the week during the summer. And whatever school they're doing the summer school at, you can go there for a free lunch, and they actually offer a free book for the kids as well. Another thing that they just added to the list of their offerings, they have a lot of their ebooks and things like that they just offered Mango Language. So if you have your library card, you can download an app, kind of like Babbel, or like a Rosetta Stone, to learn a different language. They have over 70 languages available. So those were just a couple things that I learned about at the library. I'm always interested when I go there and learning about the different things that they offer. In fact, one of them I'm going to try and do is the park passes that they have park passes you can check out, and it essentially allows you free entry into any state park where they require payment or anything like that to get into. So I thought that was pretty neat as well. One thing we did talk about at the Dream of Willows, sorry, I Imagine Willows, sorry, I totally butchered the name, was planning packets for when people have special projects they want to do. And if that's something that we can get the fee schedule like through Tyler, so when somebody comes in and they have a project they want to do, and say, hey, here's the packet for you to, extend that, you're building this way or replace that fence. Like, here's the packet of what you have to do, and that's kind of what we were talking about there that night, right, David? That was, yeah.
Good name.
We're actively actually working on that project
Okay.
right now to create a more robust package with an overview and explanation of fees so that the users more knowledgeable right off the gate of the process and what their fees are going to be and what all the steps are going to be.
Perfect. And then one more thing about the library is they did get their new system called Overdrive working. It's with Willows and Orland and actually all the Glenn County libraries. But what it does is it allows the libraries to track any of their online users who's using their ebooks, or like I said, their Mango Language, any of their online services, to track to make sure that they actually have a valid membership card for the library. So once they got that system up and going, December or let's see here, which month was it? Just in January, when they had 16 new library cards added, because a lot of them had actually expired, but they're still getting access to the free services of the library. So just neat that they're able to start tracking with technology and things like that. So that's all I have. That's my report.
Thank you, Evan. Mr. Sprague? Yeah, likewise, I've been making some contacts with some potential business opportunities. I've been talking with the manager, and he's trying to connect me with the owner of the Chevron station down on 57. And that particular individual also owns the 4+ acres that's between that gas station and Swift Trucking. And he's got aspirations of doing something like what he's got in William, where there's a Wendy's and so on. In addition to that, maybe a truck washing rack and that type of thing. So we'll see where that progresses. Also, 4 or 5 years ago, excuse me, I was doing some consultant work for a building and trades organization in Sacramento called MEP. It's an acronym. MEP Academy is an acronym for Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing. They have a training facility at Mather Air Force Base that has about 160 students in it. They engaged me to be able to see if they could get into some of the high schools and for some on-the-job training, vocational training at a high school level. And I was in that process, and then came COVID. So I also brought them up here to take a look at what we could do, and we were looking at the building that's immediately north of is it Case, the tractor place. There was some interest in that, but that evaporated. They've now been able to rent that out. However, they recently contacted me again and asked if we still had something available in Willows or for Glenn County. And the reason is that because of COVID, the schools that we were working with in Sacramento have taken their shop space and turned it into actual classroom because of the distancing and that type of thing. So the point is that organization is in fact looking to get into rural cities and or counties. So I'm hopeful to be able to get them to come up. We're taking a look at the old, what was the Save More Market that's on Tehama and whatnot as a possibility. So we'll see where that might go as well. The other thing is that I am receiving very favorable comments from some of the business people on the 99 corridor with this whole idea of revitalization of the historic 99 and continuing to work with those folks. And then the other thing, of course, we postponed it, but I was going to bring up what we talked about with it, but we'll save that for another meeting. The other, just real quick, with the rains, I'm getting contacts from the people that I've gotten acquainted with out at 600 Humboldt. And they seem to be stuck between a rock and a hard spot. It looked like that they might have had some action that they could take through Glenn County Health, environmental health, but they're backing away and thinking that it's a city's problem. And it's not a structural, it's not fire and so on, but these people are having these roof leaks that are getting into their units where they actually are having to use their own shop vacs and so on. So I'm asking you, Joe, is there some way we can interject back into that conversation that we had? Or Marty too, don't let me leave you out of it.
I'd
I
have
don't
to
know how
check
to
on
deal
that.
with
I don't know if that would qualify.
We'll have Wyatt take a look at it. He's the lead on that particular property, so
Okay,
we'll talk to him.
all right, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Sprague. Yeah, real quickly, I've attended three important meetings as of late. First was on January 26th, a joint special meeting of the Glen Groundwater Authority and the Calusa Groundwater Authority at the Sites Reservoir offices in Maxwell. Discussion was a groundwater sustainability plan and our incomplete status. Secondly, I filled in for Evan at the as an alternate at the Glen County Waste Management regional meeting recently. And lastly, yesterday, we had a regular meeting at the Glen Groundwater Authority Board of Directors, and you heard a lot of what we talked about yesterday, a few minutes ago, and that's all I have.
I have one thing to add.
Go ahead.
I had actually gone to, reason I missed that meeting, the waste meeting, was because I was actually at the council. I always want to say, council member and mayor conference down in Monterey, which offered a lot of really good information, and it got my trainings out of the way that we're required to have as well. So met a lot of good people, got a lot of good information, so it was very helpful.
Yeah, that's good training set. Yeah, very good. Yeah, absolutely. That's well worth it. We actually had a good meeting. Yeah. Waste management. Very. Well, very good. Well, that's all I have. If nothing further, we've.
I just have one thing. Sorry, I did
Yes,
think of something.
Marty?
Our new finance and HR specialist started yesterday, and we're all super excited because we now have a complete full finance department after almost 5 months.
Wow.
The two-person department is now a fully intact two-person department. She's been filing and putting together personnel and HR files that have been, deferred maintenance now for months. So it's really wonderful.
Joanne has a department now. Very
She
good.
does.
Congratulations.
She does.
That's okay. Yeah.
Well, that would explain an
Very happy.
observation that I had earlier today when I came in and picked up some stuff. I saw the lady sitting behind the glass where I think you used to sit. more frequent.
No, actually, that's where Katie Butler used to
Okay,
sit.
where she
Actually,
sits.
she
Okay,
sat there.
So
Yeah.
my thought was, oh, Marty dyed her hair.
No, same as she ever was.
I saw you from the back. I
We'll
didn't
be-
see. you.
We'll be continuing item 11A and B as we mentioned, and it leads us to item 12 adjournment. Time is 9:40 PM, meeting adjourned. Have a good rest.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, David. Oh, that's good training.